Stepping out of the civil affairs office, holding the gilded marriage certificate in her hand, Melissa still couldn't believe she had actually gotten married in a flash, except her whirlwind marriage wasn't to her 7-year pilot boyfriend, Percival, but to a blind date arranged by her family, someone she'd met less than a week ago, the head of the Kane family, Nathaniel. Our marital home is already prepared, located in Building 11 of Yehuan Original Residence. The man before her had refined brows and eyes, with deep, three-dimensional facial features. His tall frame was impeccably clad in a custom-tailored suit that perfectly accentuated his lean waist. Nathaniel handed the car keys and the Centurion black card to Melissa. "I've prepared a car for your convenience. The card has no PIN, feel free to use it. Once you've settled matters here in Shanghai, I'll pick you up on the 25th to return to City B. On the 30th, we'll fly to Seattle for our wedding." "Thank you, but Melissa looked at the car keys and card he handed her, about to refuse, but was interrupted by Nathaniel. "We're already married. I'm your husband. Don't be so formal with me. I'll go back and prepare for the wedding first. For these last 10+ days, you sort out your relationship in Shanghai." Melissa took the car keys and card upon hearing this, nodding emphatically. "I will. I'll be waiting for you to pick me up on the 25th. Nathaniel then walked towards the parked Maybach nearby. After the car had driven away, Melissa took the car keys he had given her and walked towards the Bugatti Type 87 parked on the other side. Over the years, she had rarely driven, fearing she might damage the car, so she first sent it to the 4S dealership. Afterward, she took a ride back to the residence she shared with her boyfriend, Percival, at No. 10 Tan Palace. She had just arrived not long before Percival returned as well. Percival walked in, dressed in a white pilot uniform and pulling a carry-on suitcase. His face was sharply defined, flawless in its perfection, save for a small mole at the outer corner of his phoenix eyes, a feature that fortune-tellers claimed marked him as fickle-hearted. Melissa glanced at the European-style wall clock. It was only 3 p.m., and asked in confusion, "Why are you back so early today?" Before, Percival never returned until 10 p.m. Percival casually set his carry-on aside and said, "A friend is returning from abroad. I'm heading out to pick them up soon." "What friend?" Melissa asked casually, and as soon as the words left her mouth, she regretted it, because Percival never liked her prying into his private affairs. She was just a travel planner, commonly known as a tour guide, while Percival was not only a Singapore Airlines captain but also the heir to HY Aviation. Their statuses are worlds apart, completely mismatched. They had been together for 7 years. Always in a secret relationship, never seeing the light of day. Sure enough, Percival frowned, his tone full of impatience. "Just an ordinary friend, you wouldn't know them." Melissa heard this and wisely didn't ask further. After all, she was already married, and it wasn't appropriate to inquire too much about other men's affairs. Percival casually placed the laptop on the coffee table again, then went to the bathroom to shower. Soon after he went in, the laptop on the coffee table kept beeping with message notifications. Melissa opened the laptop and saw his WeChat logged in. A beautiful and intellectual woman with a note saying "Forgot" kept messaging Percival. "Percival, I've regretted it ever since we parted 7 years ago. I blame myself for not knowing how to cherish you back then. In our final year together during the senior internship, you were always busy every day, and we barely had time to meet. At that time, there was a man who cared for me deeply, making me feel like falling in love again, so I ended up with him, but I have no feelings for him. I've always loved you. At that time, I just wanted to make you jealous, never thought you'd directly break up with me. We separated after just 1 month together. I've been too afraid to return to Shanghai, scared you wouldn't want to see me, afraid you'd hate me, terrified you'd forgotten our past, and most of all, frightened of losing you completely. I heard from friends that you've dated many girls, all of them resembling me. I know you've never forgotten me. If possible, this time when I return, I hope we can both forget everything from the past, start fresh, and begin anew." Messages came one after another. Melissa just watched silently. Then, Melissa saw Percival, who was taking a shower, use his phone to reply to a message from a woman saved as "Forgot." "Lesley, you've explained so much, but I just want to ask you one thing. Do you still love me?" It turned out the woman saved as "Forgot" was Lesley, Percival's first love. Lesley replied almost instantly, "Love, I'll pick you up at airport at 7 p.m. After the message was sent, Lesley stopped replying. Meanwhile, Melissa silently put the computer back in its place, acting as if nothing had happened. Percival came downstairs, having changed into a simple L'Europeana coat. "I'm leaving." Melissa looked at him and asked, "Are you coming back tonight?" Percival paused. And it took him a long time to reply, "Friends haven't gathered in a long time. I won't be back tonight." That night, Percival indeed didn't come back, but Melissa wasn't as upset. In their 7 years together, Percival flew all over the world. They said they had been together for 7 years, but in reality, they had only spent 328 days together. Melissa knew Percival had many women outside their relationship. She only just realized that the one he truly loved was still his first love, Lesley. She had previously heard from Percival's friends that he was a womanizer because his first love had betrayed him. At the time, she even felt sorry for Percival and pitied him. Now, it seems she should have pitied herself more. A dreamless night. The next day, Melissa went to resign from HY Airlines after getting ready. She is a private travel planner for a travel company under Singapore Airlines, specializing in customizing travel plans for the wealthy. As soon as she walked into the company, she saw a group of flight attendants laughing and chatting around a woman. "Mrs. Lesley, you finally decided to come back from Los Angeles. 7 years ago, you suddenly resigned without even saying goodbye, which worried us terribly. Now that you're back, Singapore Airlines face is back too." Melissa looked in the direction of the voices and immediately saw Lesley surrounded by the crowd. Lesley seemed to notice her gaze and looked over, the moment their eyes met. Perhaps it was a woman's intuition. Both recognized each other's identity instantly. At this moment, a colleague who was close to Melissa leaned in. "Do you know, this Lesley is Mr. Percival's first love, just back from Los Angeles. She's really something. She cheated on him, and even after 7 years apart, Mr. Percival still can't forget her." Lesley, her slightly wavy long hair cascades casually, paired with a simple white shirt and relaxed wide-leg trousers, effortless yet elegant. "So this is the kind of woman Percival likes." Melissa averted her gaze, swiped her face to enter the building, and headed to the global travel department to submit her resignation letter. The department head stared at her resignation letter, visibly puzzled. "Why the sudden resignation? Just yesterday someone specifically requested you to accompany them to Sri Lanka. If you leave, where am I supposed to find a private guide who speaks 10 languages? Melissa explained gently. "I got married and am going back to my hometown with my husband to hold the wedding. I'll be staying there permanently from now on." "When did this happen? I thought you never had a boyfriend." The manager was puzzled. Melissa had never mentioned being in a relationship during her 8 years working here. Melissa truthfully replied, "A blind date arranged by my parents at home." "Where is your husband from?" the minister asked again. "Same as me." Melissa only answered half of it. "Oh, I wish you happiness." Melissa thanked them, then went to the administrative department to handle her resignation handover. The handover process would take a week. After signing her resignation application, HR called out to her. "Tonight, Mr. Percival is hosting a welcome dinner for Mrs. Lesley and the whole company is invited. You should come along. You're leaving soon, so it's a chance to gather with everyone one last time before you go." "Okay." 8 p.m. By the river Immortal, Percival and Lesley sat side by side. Among the group, Percival's gaze remained fixed on Lesley. He probably didn't even know that Melissa was also at the banquet. By the riverside, it's quite lively here. Melissa sat by the window, just in time to see someone proposing on the terrace. She watched the blissfully embracing couple with a touch of envy. Just then, a colleague teased Percival. "Mr. Percival, I heard Riverside is a sacred place for proposals. Are you here scouting the location to prepare for your own proposal someday?" After hearing this, everyone's gossipy gazes shifted between Percival and Lesley. Percival smiled without speaking, his gaze inadvertently landing on Melissa, only to find her watching someone else's proposal. Displeasure flickered in his eyes as he replied indifferently, "You'll be the first to know if there's good news." Melissa finally averted her gaze and locked eyes with Percival, pretending not to have heard anything. She continued chatting with her colleagues. Meanwhile, other colleagues from the airline nearby took turns toasting Lesley, but Percival intercepted each glass on her behalf. Excessive drinking is taboo for a captain. Yet Percival lowered his standards for Lesley. Before long, he was completely drunk and unconscious, leaning heavily on Lesley. Lesley held Percival in her arms and asked the crowd, "Percival is drunk. Can someone help me take him home?" Someone teased, "Sis, don't joke around. Your family. How could we outsiders interfere?" Melissa heard the term sis and couldn't help but think of the 7 years she had been with Percival. She had never heard such an address before. Melissa took a sip of warm water, then saw Percival, looking drunk, embrace Lesley. "Darling, I'm not going back. Wherever you are is home, and I'm following you." Percival's words instantly drew the attention and teasing of their colleagues present. "Mr. Percival is so devoted. After all these years apart, they're still this affectionate when they meet again." Lesley chuckled and patted Percival's shoulder. "Be good. I'll take you home after the gathering." Melissa silently averted her gaze, no longer feeling any heartache, and said to a colleague beside her, "I'm heading back first. I'm not feeling well." With that, she left alone. After arriving home and finishing her ablutions, she sat on the living room sofa. Melissa received Nathaniel's message. "I've reserved a ring at Harry Winston. Let me know if you have time to see if you like it. The wedding was too rushed. I've wronged you. You can buy any other styles you like, okay?" Just as she finished replying to the message, Melissa heard the sound of the door opening at the entrance. Turning to look, she saw Lesley supporting Percival as they walked in. Meanwhile, Percival kept murmuring, "Darling, don't go. I'm not leaving. Be good," Lesley said in a doting tone, naturally ignoring Melissa, helping Percival onto the sofa before taking off his coat. Melissa stood up to go upstairs. Lesley stopped her first. "You must be Melissa, Percival's secret girlfriend of 7 years. Melissa didn't expect Percival to have told her about being his secret girlfriend. She turned to look at Lesley. "Yes, what about it?" Lesley smiled faintly. "Don't be nervous, I mean no harm. I just wanted to say that your 7 years with Percival don't seem to compare to the single day I've reconnected with him." Melissa frowned slightly, asking calmly, "What do you mean? Are you here to stake your claim?" Lesley choked, then composed herself, putting on a generous and proper smile. "As your senior, let me give you a piece of advice. First love will always be first love. Even if other relationships come later, the first love remains the most special one. Thank you for staying by Percival's side these 7 years. It's not convenient for me to stay overnight, so please take good care of him tonight." After putting down Percival, she turned and left the villa. Melissa paid no attention to her words, calling the butler to take care of Percival while she went upstairs to shower and sleep. Before bed, Melissa checked the time on her phone. September 14th, only 10 days left before I leave this city where I've lived for 8 years. Early the next morning, Melissa saw Percival in the restaurant when she went downstairs for breakfast. Percival was looking at his phone. On the screen was a video taken by a colleague last night, showing him holding Lesley and calling her wife. Melissa had just arrived when he quickly put away his phone, casually saying, "I'm off today. Don't you like shopping? Want me to go with you?" It was charity. In the past, whenever Percival did something wrong, he would pity Melissa for a day or two. Melissa sat down and nodded, "Okay." Today she happened to be going to see Nathaniel's custom-made engagement ring. After breakfast, the driver arrived at the Harry Winston store. Upon seeing the destination was the jewelry store known as the King of Diamonds, Percival's gaze instantly turned cold, and he didn't get out of the car. Melissa noticed his displeasure but ignored it, getting out of the car and entering the store by herself. As soon as she entered the store, the sales associate greeted her. "Mrs. Kane, the diamond ring Mr. Kane ordered for you is inside. Please follow me." VIP room. The SA placed Nathaniel's ring in front of Melissa, the one and only Winston pink legacy ring in the world, featuring an 1896 CT fancy vivid pink diamond, accented by 2 shield-shaped side stones, set in an 18K rose gold and platinum mount, dazzlingly radiant. Melissa had just picked up the ring and put it on her finger when Percival walked in. She raised her hand, showing it to Percival. "How does it look?" The natural fancy pink diamond reflected dazzling light under the illumination, its immense value immediately apparent at a glance. Percival's disgust was unconcealed. "It doesn't look good, and it doesn't suit you." The atmosphere in the VIP room instantly became awkward. Percival continued, "Melissa, how many times do I have to tell you? I don't want to get married right now, so stop with these forced marriage tactics. Go ahead and browse on your own." With that, Percival turned and left. After he left, SA cautiously asked Melissa, "Mrs. Kane, may I ask who that was?" "Don't mind him, just an ex-boyfriend," Melissa said, taking a picture of the ring and sending it to Nathaniel. Nathaniel quickly replied, "It's beautiful. It suits you very well. You deserve the best. Thank you." After replying, Melissa chose a pair of ribbon couple rings, preparing to give them to Mr. Kane in return. Then, walking out of the store, she posted a Twitter message visible only to herself. I've been in love with Percival for 7 years, and he's always refused to marry me. Actually, he doesn't know that I would never marry him anyway. Melissa took a car to Top Bridal again to try on wedding dresses. As soon as she entered the store, the manager greeted her warmly. Mrs. Kane, these are all the new seasonal styles Mr. Kane arranged. Professional models will showcase them for you, and you can take home any piece you like directly, okay? Every wedding dress on the professional models was so beautiful it was impossible to look away. Melissa took photos of each one and posted them on her Moments. I like every single one, but my walk-in closet is too small to fit them all. No sooner had I posted it than someone commented below, Nathaniel, if you like them, buy them all, I'll save a room for you. Just for wedding dresses, friend, congratulations, RMS, Melissa is finally getting married, colleague. Even if you're desperate to get married, there's no need to steal pictures. Can you afford Top Bridal's wedding dresses? At the same time, Percival's message also popped up. Delete the Moments post. Melissa glanced at it but didn't reply. A single Moments post. Percival and Nathaniel with completely opposite responses. What is he afraid of? After all, Melissa came out of Top Bridal after choosing her wedding dress and returned to Sandalwood Palace. Percival didn't come back. Melissa didn't ask either, and took out a suitcase to start packing. For the next week, Percival didn't return to Sandalwood Palace. Melissa knew that he had always been with Lesley. Percival shared photos of his travels with Lesley on his social media every day. The Northern Lights in Tromsø, the Rainbow Reef in Fiji, the Uni Salt Flats in Bolivia, these were all places she had told Percival before that she wanted to go with him. Percival went, but not with her, on the 7th night. Percival finally dragged his carry-on suitcase back. After showering, he returned to the master bedroom in a silk robe and called out to the freshly bathed Melissa, "Come here." Over the years, Percival had treated her as someone to summon and dismiss at will, completely regarding her as a permanent bed partner who would never leave. Actually, Percival didn't know that for these 7 years, Melissa also needed emotional support, also needed a man, but fortunately, she doesn't need that anymore. Percival, seeing her motionless, stepped forward and pulled her to sit on his lap, his thumb caressing her face. "Have you learned to behave this past week?" Melissa said nothing, tilting her head to avoid his hand. Percival paid no mind. Leaning down to pin her beneath him, kissing her neck, Melissa pushed against him. "Percival, I don't want to do this with you." Percival paused in his movements. "Do you remember what day tomorrow, September 22nd, is?" Melissa asked, looking at his handsome face. "What day?" "Our 7-year anniversary together." Percival stood up, met her gaze, and chuckled lightly. "So what?" Melissa pushed Percival away and sat aside. "We've been together for 7 years, and it seems you've never bought me a gift. Could you give me one this time?" For these 7 years, it had always been her giving unilaterally. Before leaving, it was time for Percival to repay her. Percival heard this and adjusted his bathrobe. "All right, I'll get it ready for you." With that, he turned and left. Melissa watched his retreating figure, a mocking smile tugging at the corner of her lips. Tomorrow wasn't their 7th anniversary at all, just an utterly ordinary day. The next day, Melissa had just gotten out of bed and stepped out of the bedroom when she saw Lesley sitting in the second-floor drawing room. Lesley walked toward Melissa with a smile. "Percival said today is your 7th anniversary. Last night, he and I picked out a gift for you together." As she spoke, Lesley led Melissa to the walk-in closet, opening it to reveal rows of clothes and jewelry. The Valentino Fall/Winter 2024 collection, minimalist and elegant in style, was completely Lesley's taste and utterly unsuitable for Melissa. Several haute couture pieces inside were even purchased to fit Lesley's measurements. Melissa quietly gazed at the clothes without saying a word. Lesley curved her lips and said gently, "Miss Melissa, I heard from Percival that you're a tour guide. And you probably won't be able to afford these clothes in your lifetime, but you've been with him for 7 years without a name or status, so he really should compensate you. Do you like these gifts?" Percival and Lesley really did tell each other everything. Melissa withdrew her gaze. "Sorry, I don't like any of these gifts. They're yours." "Oh, and Percival, these are for you too." With that, Melissa turned and went downstairs. Meanwhile, Percival was working downstairs. Seeing Melissa come down, he closed his laptop. "You always used to think I treated you unfairly. This time, I had Lesley help me pick out gifts, making up for all the anniversary gifts I owed you before." what do you think, are these gifts enough? Having an ex-girlfriend help choose gifts for a current girlfriend. Only a romantic man like Percival could do something like this, Melissa slowly said. The clothes and jewelry aren't my size. But I still want to thank you and Lesley for preparing all night. With that, she left directly. The moment she walked out of the villa, a breeze accompanied by light rain brushed her cheeks, leaving her with a feeling of being suspended between heaven and earth. Melissa's departure left the living room in a deathly silence. Percival stared at the entrance, his gaze unreadable. Just then, Lesley came down from upstairs. Percival, you saw it, didn't you? Your girlfriend is quite cunning. You prepared so many gifts for her, wanting to give her a sense of security. But you don't know that in love, security and a sense of crisis go hand in hand. The better you treat Melissa, the more she'll take advantage. You need to give her a sense of crisis occasionally. With a sense of crisis, a woman won't leave. Percival did not answer. Melissa went to the company after leaving home. Today was her last day to complete the resignation handover procedures. She was busy all day until closing time. After handing over the last client file to her colleague, she completely severed ties with HY Airlines. As I was leaving the company with my colleague, I ran into Percival and Lesley, who had just gotten out of their car and were about to enter the building. The two exchanged a glance, then quickly and tacitly looked away. At the company, they were strangers who didn't know each other, their relationship a clandestine affair that couldn't see the light of day. Just then, my colleague suddenly grabbed Melissa's left hand and exclaimed, "Melissa, isn't this an HW wedding ring? Are you really getting married? When did you get a boyfriend? I've worked with you for so long, and I had no idea." Percival, who had already reached the company entrance, suddenly stopped. He looked back at the ring on Melissa's hand, which was the same pink diamond from last time. Percival's black eyes instantly filled with coldness. He only heard Melissa reply with a smile, "You'll know in a week." Melissa bid farewell to her colleagues with laughter. And it wasn't until she got into the taxi back to Tan Palace that she opened her phone and saw the message Percival had just sent. "In a week, I still won't marry you." Melissa looked at the message and couldn't help but laugh. Where did Percival get the confidence to think she couldn't live without him? Melissa did not reply and turned off her phone. Returning to Sandalwood Palace late at night, the bedroom door was suddenly pushed open. Melissa was awakened by the noise. In her daze, she saw Percival walking in with an unhappy expression. "Didn't I say that ring isn't for you? And I don't want to get married right now." "You misunderstood. I just liked it, so I bought it." Melissa was still half asleep. Percival took out a card and handed it to her. "How much money can a tour guide like you have? Here's the money for the ring. This is the last time. Don't do things that cause misunderstandings like this again. And don't say things that cause misunderstandings. If you keep acting like this, I'll never marry you in this lifetime." Never in this lifetime. Melissa sobered up a lot, looking at that card, feeling nothing but irony. Percival wasn't short of money to buy a ring. It's because he felt buying a ring meant marriage, and he didn't want to marry her. Marriage is a choice made by weighing pros and cons. It's just that she wasn't his first choice, but he didn't know, nor was he her first choice. Melissa's gaze shifted from the card to Percival's face. That face was still as handsome and refined as it had been 7 years ago. Perhaps because she was married. Perhaps because she had already registered her marriage with someone else. Perhaps because she had a definite future partner. When she looked at that face again, her heart felt no great stir. "I've already paid for it myself. You can take this card back." "I don't want it." Returning the card to Percival, Melissa turned her back and continued to sleep. Percival was taken aback. For the past half-month, he wondered if it was just his imagination, but Melissa seemed to have become a different person. He didn't want to delve deeper and turned to leave. Just as he turned his head, he saw 8 large suitcases piled in the corner. "Why do you have so many suitcases?" Melissa still had her back to him. "Preparing to go back to my hometown." Percival frowned in confusion. "Why the sudden decision to go back to your hometown?" Over the past 7 years, Melissa had rarely returned home, and he wasn't very familiar with her family. "Nothing much. I just miss my parents and want to visit them." "Then you don't need to pack so much luggage. It's not like you're not coming back." "I want to take these things home to cherish," Melissa replied with utmost calmness. Over the years, she had bought many souvenirs during her travels, which had always been kept in Sandalwood Palace. Each piece held sentimental value. She couldn't bear to part with them, nor could she leave her most beloved possessions in this loveless place. 8 28-inch suitcases, packed to the brim, were what Percival helped Lesley pack during their travels. While she stayed home alone organizing them for an entire week, Percival then put his worries aside. Perhaps he never had any worries to begin with. After all, Melissa was the most well-behaved and sensible woman he had ever met. They had been together for 7 years, and spent little time together, yet Melissa never made a fuss, unlike other women who would constantly check up on him, or argue with him because he was flirting with others. Percival was certain that Melissa, a woman who loved him so deeply, would never leave him. He added, "I've been very busy lately and don't have time to accompany you back, you'll have to go alone." Melissa interrupted his unfinished sentence. "It's fine, I've called a car. Someone will pick me up and drop me off, so you don't need to worry." Hearing this, Percival let out a barely noticeable sigh of relief. "All right, remember to let me know when you arrive at your hometown." He was terrified Melissa mentioned taking him home to meet her parents and bringing up marriage. After 7 years together, Melissa didn't need to guess to know what Percival was truly worried about. He was afraid she would take him home. 3 years ago, Melissa had once brought up the idea of taking him home. That time, Melissa was also out of her mind, wanting to take him home to meet her parents. She had originally worried that her parents wouldn't approve of her relationship with Percival, fearing they'd think Percival wasn't good enough for her. But that day, Percival was unusually angry, unleashing the biggest outburst he'd ever had. She could never forget what Percival said that day. "Melissa, what makes you think I would marry you? What makes you think someone of my status would marry you?" It wasn't until that day that she realized Percival had always felt he wasn't good enough for her. She had also never truly been in his heart. Afterward, Melissa never again brought up the idea of taking Percival home. She just wanted to enjoy the relationship and let it end naturally when the time came. Percival was once the lifelong partner she chose for herself, but unfortunately, the two were ultimately not meant to be. The bedroom fell silent. Percival also recalled the incident from 3 years ago. He made a big fuss that time, leaving Shanghai in a fit of pique and only returning 7 months later. "Looking back now, I feel inexplicably guilty, so I turn and walk to the bed to sit down." "Melissa, marriage isn't a mandatory life choice. Besides, isn't our current situation just fine? It's practically no different from being married. I know you long for marriage, but you should understand, what I'm giving you now is something even married couples can't obtain." Indeed, the number of times he's cuckolded himself is truly something others can't achieve even after marriage. Melissa just looked at him without saying a word. Meanwhile, Percival held her left hand, his fingertips brushing against the pink diamond ring on her finger. "Take this ring off. When you return from your hometown, I'll give you a conventional one." Percival somehow hated this ring intensely, didn't want to see it at all. Its sight inexplicably unsettled him. He thought it might be because he was afraid of marrying Melissa. After all, he hadn't had enough fun yet. Melissa slowly withdrew her hand from Percival's. "I'm sorry, I don't want to take it off." Perhaps she would never take it off in this lifetime. Percival was rarely rejected by Melissa, but lately, it had happened again and again. A faint unease stirred in his heart. At the same time, his phone chimed with a notification. On the lock screen was a message from Lesley. The previous note "forget" had now been changed back to Lesley's name. "Percival, do you still remember our promise? We must watch a meteor shower together in this lifetime. That promise can be fulfilled tonight. Will you come and accompany me?" Percival quickly glanced at it, then put away his phone and reached out to pat Melissa's head. "I have something to take care of, you go to sleep." With that, he left without looking back. Melissa was no longer sleepy at this point. She got up and walked to the floor-to-ceiling window, just in time to see Percival drive away. Unable to sleep, she turned on the TV, where the host was broadcasting. "A once-in-a-millennium Lyrid meteor shower is expected to arrive tonight at 11:30 p.m. Legend has it that couples who watch the meteor shower together will stay together for life." Melissa just saw the message on Percival's phone, so they want to spend their lives together. May their wish come true. Just then, the phone rang. Picking it up, she saw it was a video call from her best friend Kate in City B. "I heard Nathaniel got you that Winston pink legacy ring. Let me see it." Melissa raised her left hand to show Kate. "It's so beautiful. Only such a ring suits the status of the eldest daughter of the Lennon family. By the way, does Percival know?" Melissa shook her head. "I haven't told him yet. I plan to tell him on the day I leave." "That's right, it's better to tell him when you're leaving. What if he finds out you're the heiress of the Lennon family from the capital and starts bothering you?" Melissa smiled self-deprecatingly. He probably wouldn't. You don't know how awful his expression was when I went to pick up the ring a week ago. He even said this ring didn't suit me, and just recently, he told me to take it off, saying he might never marry me in this lifetime. I kept thinking, if he knew I never needed him to give me this ring or marriage in the first place. I wonder what he'd think, Kate said indignantly. How could he be like this? If he doesn't want to marry you, why has he wasted 7 years of your life? Melissa walked to the floor-to-ceiling window and looked up at the ink-black night sky. It's not his fault. You know, I've been so lonely these 7 years, and I'm grateful he's been with me. We both got what we needed from each other. He wanted a very obedient woman, a temporary home to help him forget Lesley. And I needed someone to accompany me, to make me feel less lonely. Kate sighed, recalling what had happened 7 years ago, and didn't try to persuade Melissa. Are you feeling sad now? Not really, dating him is fine, but I have different standards for marriage. Don't be fooled by our 7-year relationship. If it actually came to marrying him, I wouldn't dare. During the Percival 7 years with him, he was always flying around, and Melissa knew he had quite a few lovers on the side. Melissa always turned a blind eye because she knew they were just dating. If you get married, then no. Kate nodded in agreement. Well, in our circle, matching families is very important. The Nathaniel your aunt and uncle chose is more suitable for you. The two chatted for a while longer before hanging up. Melissa stood on the terrace, the diamond on her ring sparkling in the dark night. The next day, Melissa received a strange text message while eating breakfast. I'm Lesley, let's talk. Melissa was puzzled, not knowing what Lesley wanted to talk to her about. After a moment's thought, she agreed. She wanted to see what Lesley wanted to talk to her about. When she was about to leave, she learned that the driver was not available today. She had no choice but to drive herself to the appointment, but she didn't want to drive any of the cars in the garage. She didn't want to use Percival's things anymore, so she had the 4S shop bring over the Bugatti that Nathaniel had given her. When Melissa arrived at the restaurant, Lesley also happened to be getting out of her car. When Lesley saw Melissa step out of the Bugatti Type 87, a hint of surprise flashed in her eyes. Melissa, let's go inside and talk. Melissa stood still. If there's anything, just say it here. Lesley got straight to the point. Then I'll be direct. There are some things Percival can't tell you, so I have to be the bad guy. Percival is sentimental. You've been with him for 7 years. Even raising a dog for that long would create attachment. He wouldn't have the heart to kick you out immediately. You have no one to rely on in Shanghai. Leaving Percival must be really hard for you, right? As she spoke, Lesley's gaze fell on the Bugatti behind Melissa, her expression laced with mockery. Your salary isn't that high either. Without Percival, could you even afford to rent such an expensive car? Melissa furrowed her brows slightly, a hint of impatience creeping in. What exactly are you trying to say? Lesley continued. Tomorrow, Percival and I will be flying the Verona route together. Melissa and Percival got together, and as a captain, he traveled all over the world, except for the Verona route. Colleagues say the Verona route is Percival's taboo. Lesley smiled and said, do you know why Percival never flew the Verona route before but does now? Because that's our exclusive route, and also our promise. There's a bronze statue of Juliet in the center of Verona. Legend has it that as long as you touch the statue, you'll receive a blessing, ensuring that lovers will eventually be united. Percival promised me he would only fly this route with me. 7 years ago, he stopped flying this route because of me. And now, he's restarting this route because of me too. Tomorrow, after Percival flies to Verona with me, he and I will get back together. Melissa listened quietly, then looked at her. Are you saying you're here to break up with me on behalf of Percival? Lesley shook her head. I wanted you to recognize the difficulty and withdraw on your own. To leave Percival voluntarily, he won't marry you. Your statuses aren't on the same level. Melissa understood. Indeed. I'm not in the same class as you, rest assured. I'll step aside for you. With those words, Melissa drove away. Today's events also made her realize that leaving Percival was the right decision. Returning to Sandalwood Palace, Melissa sat on the living room sofa reviewing the wedding itinerary sent by Nathaniel. You handle the arrangements. Nathaniel quickly replied. I'll pick you up in 2 days. The wedding is a significant event. We'll finalize everything when we meet. With your preferences as the priority, okay. It wasn't until late at night that Percival returned. He took a shower, changed into a white captain's uniform, and walked to the living room dragging his carry-on suitcase. I'm flying to Verona tomorrow. Take care of yourself at home. Melissa said nothing, only asking, then when will you be back? She was leaving Shanghai in 2 days, and he had to say goodbye before she left. Percival's expression changed, and his tone became cold. You forgot again. Didn't I tell you not to ask me where I'm going, or when I'll be back, and especially not to check up on me? Melissa was stunned. She had indeed forgotten. It seems that if you don't care about someone, you'll forget all their preferences. Percival left without a word and was unreachable for 2 days. At 10 a.m. on the 25th, Nathaniel arrived punctually to pick up Melissa. A row of Brabus G900s were neatly parked at the entrance of the Sandalwood Palace. Nathaniel got out of the car and walked up to Melissa. Have you packed everything? Melissa nodded. Yes, good. Tell them what needs to be taken. We'll leave once everything's moved. Nathaniel had barely finished speaking when several bodyguards in black stepped forward. Melissa entered the walk-in closet on the 2nd floor of the villa with her bodyguards, directing them to start moving her luggage. The butler of Tan Palace was astonished at the sight. Miss Melissa, where are you going? Going back to my hometown. The butler hesitated, then asked, Does sir know? Do I need to inform him? No need, he knows. As they spoke, the bodyguard had already taken all the luggage. Melissa stood at the doorway of the cloakroom, gazing at the gifts she had given to Percival in the corner, clothes, shoes, ties, and more, most of which were crafted by Italian designer. Each piece was custom-made, exorbitantly priced, and held profound significance. Unfortunately, Percival had never worn or used any of them, and some gift boxes remained unopened. These gifts, Melissa didn't throw away, treating them as the cost of youth she had paid for Percival over these 7 years. Melissa averted her gaze and turned to go downstairs. Stepping out of the villa, Nathaniel approached. Have you taken care of everything here? Just one last thing to settle. As she spoke, Melissa took out her phone and sent a message to Percival. Then she blocked Percival on all social media accounts and contact methods before turning to follow Nathaniel toward the Rolls-Royce parked at the entrance. 3 days later, Percival finally concluded his flight on the Verona route. Percival stepped off the plane in a navy blue suit paired with a white shirt uniform, followed by flight attendants in matching outfits, forming a striking sight as they walked through the airport. Lesley walked beside him in a sky blue uniform. Percival, did you know? I saw Melissa 3 days ago, and she was driving a Bugatti Type 87 that day. Did you buy it for her? Percival paused in surprise. No, he knew about this car. Only one existed worldwide, completely beyond his means to purchase. Lesley let out an almost imperceptible sigh of relief. Seems she's truly vain, spending so much just to rent such a luxury car. How many days can she even drive it? Yet at this moment, Percival wasn't listening to her, only walking behind while chatting with the flight attendants. Why did the tour guide Melissa from the travel department resign? Last time a tourist caused trouble, and we couldn't even find a translator. Percival paused mid-step and turned to look at the flight attendant. Who did you say resigned, Mr.? Percival didn't know. Melissa. She was Singapore Airlines' most famous travel consultant, their only tour guide fluent in 10 languages. What a shame she resigned. Percival stood frozen. Melissa had resigned. Why hadn't she told him? He continued to press. Why did she suddenly resign? I heard from the head of the travel department that she went back to City B to get married, apparently to someone from her hometown. Getting married? Percival couldn't believe it. He frowned and took out his phone. After turning it on, he saw the message Melissa had sent him 3 days ago. Percival, you don't have to take my feelings for you seriously all these years. I've gone home and married the husband my parents chose for me. Percival was stunned and sent her a message. After the message was sent, a bright red exclamation mark followed. Message sent, but rejected by the recipient. Percival clenched his phone tightly, unwillingly tapping the voice call button. The other party has not added you as a friend. Voice calls are not available. Exiting the voice call, he clicked on Melissa's profile picture, only to see that what was once Melissa's solo portrait had now changed into a wedding photo of a man and woman. Percival stood frozen in place, his eyes fixed unwaveringly on Melissa's profile picture on his phone. Lesley noticed his unusual behavior and stepped forward to ask, Percival, what's wrong? As she spoke, her gaze dropped, and she saw the photo on Percival's screen. After clearly seeing who was in the photo, Lesley exclaimed, Is this Melissa? She got married. In the wedding photo, Melissa was nestled in Nathaniel's arms. Both were equally attractive and looked very well matched. Percival's expression grew increasingly grim. the surrounding temperature instantly dropping to freezing point. With a cold expression, he put away his phone, strode out of the airport, and drove back to his home in Tan Palace. Upon arriving home, Percival angrily pushed open the villa's front door and found the housekeeper. "Where is Melissa?" The butler noticed Percival's gloomy expression, took a deep breath, and then replied tremblingly, Melissa left with a man 3 days ago. She said she was returning to her hometown and mentioned that you, sir, were aware of it." Upon hearing this, Percival turned and walked up to the second-floor bedroom, only to find the suitcase in the corner indeed missing. Along with all of Melissa's belongings in the wardrobe, Percival stood at the wardrobe door, his eyes darkening with anger. After a long pause, he took out his phone and sent the wedding photo from Melissa's profile to his assistant. "Find out who this man in the photo is, and locate Melissa's exact hometown address. Book me a flight to City B immediately. Have the information ready before I land in City B. Understood, Mr. Percival." Percival, as the heir to HY Airlines, naturally had no shortage of elite assistants at his disposal. The assistant quickly sent the flight details to Percival's phone. Percival didn't have time to change clothes, walked out of the villa, and drove straight to the airport. He knew he was being impulsive now, but he couldn't control his actions. Deep down, a voice told him he must find Melissa and bring her back, or he would regret it for the rest of his life. Meanwhile, Melissa was sunbathing on a private island near Seattle. This small island was Nathaniel's gift to Melissa on the day they got their marriage certificate. They are about to hold their wedding on this island. Her best friend Kate, lying on the beach chair beside her, sighed and said, "So, does it feel like 7 years ago again?" Melissa gazed at the rolling waves in the distance and slowly replied, "Yes, this kind of life still suits me best. I've had enough bitterness, now it's all sweetness from here on out." "Thankfully you came to your senses and accepted the blind date your parents arranged, otherwise, you would have been hurt even more deeply by Percival." Kate's tone was full of displeasure when she mentioned Percival. Melissa smiled faintly and said, "All right, let's not mention him anymore. It's all in the past. If Nathaniel hears, he might misunderstand." As soon as the words were spoken, the subject of their conversation walked over. Nathaniel, dressed in a simple white t-shirt and black shorts, walked over and sat down beside Melissa's beach chair, smiling. "What are you talking about?" Melissa took off her sunglasses and looked at Nathaniel. "Nothing much. Are you done with the meeting?" "Yeah, most things are settled. The rest of the time will be spent preparing for the wedding and keeping you company." Kate heard this and smiled at Melissa, her eyes brimming with unconcealed curiosity. She cleared her throat lightly. "Ahem. It's getting a bit cold. I'll head back first, foo-foo." With those words, Kate stood up and left, glancing back at Melissa one last time as she walked away. Melissa felt a bit shy under Kate's gaze, her ears gradually tinged with a faint blush. She and Nathaniel had only spent a total of half a month together, still not knowing each other well, so she felt somewhat at a loss when facing him. Kate left, leaving only Melissa and Nathaniel on the vast beach. The two sat quietly, with the cries of seagulls and the sound of waves crashing against the rocks in their ears, creating a harmonious atmosphere. After who knows how long, Nathaniel turned to look at Melissa and said, "Want to go for a walk? I heard you can catch small fish in the shallows." Melissa looked up and, under Nathaniel's gentle gaze, nodded. "All right, let's take a walk together." With that, the two got up and headed toward the nearby shallows. On the other side, Percival arrived at the airport. Lesley walked up to him, still wearing her chief flight attendant uniform. As she was about to catch her next flight, Lesley stopped Percival and asked, "Percival, why do you look so pale? I called out to you earlier, but you just walked away without turning back. What's going on?" Percival had been completely preoccupied with going home to find Melissa and hadn't noticed Lesley at all. "It's nothing. I have something urgent to take care of. I can't accompany you on the next flight. You'll have to fly alone." Lesley felt a tremor in her heart and tentatively asked, "Is it because of Melissa?" Percival's expression darkened, a hint of displeasure flickering between his brows. He detested others prying into his personal affairs. Even if it was Lesley, "I'm in a hurry, I have to go." He didn't answer Lesley's question. After uttering those words, he simply walked past her and headed straight for the departure lounge. Lesley stood still, watching Percival's receding figure, her hands at her sides slowly clenching, her eyes filled with resentment. Percival entered the VIP lounge, removed his white uniform, and changed into the clothes his assistant had just delivered. Sitting in the lounge, He repeatedly called Melissa and tried reaching out to her through various social media platforms, only to find himself blocked without exception. Percival took a deep breath, suppressing the frustration in his heart. I kept telling myself in my heart, Melissa wouldn't get married. She loved him so much that she was willing to stay by his side for 7 years without any title or status. How could she possibly marry someone else? Soon, it was time to board the plane. Percival sat by the window in first class, gazing at the clouds outside with an inscrutable look, lost in thought. 2 hours later, we landed in City B. Percival had just gotten off the plane when he received a call from his assistant. Sorry, Mr. Percival, Miss. Melissa's hometown address remains untraceable despite our efforts. However, we've identified the man in the photo. He's the head of the Kane family in the capital, Nathaniel. Nathaniel. Percival had heard this name from his family before. To rise to the position of the Kane family's leader at such a young age spoke volumes about his formidable capabilities. His parents had repeatedly warned him that he could do whatever he wanted outside, but he must never provoke Nathaniel, or no one could save him. Melissa, how could she be involved with Nathaniel? The assistant on the other end of the phone, perhaps noticing Percival's prolonged silence, spoke up. Mr. Percival. Percival snapped back to attention at the assistant's voice. Go on. We found out that Nathaniel is about to hold a wedding recently, with Melissa as his bride, in Seattle. When? The 30th, just the day after tomorrow. Hearing this, Percival took another deep breath. Book the tickets, Seattle. After hanging up the phone, Percival turned back to the airport again, preparing to fly to Seattle. Since learning about Melissa's marriage after disembarking from the Verona flight, he hadn't rested, and now his mind was a chaotic mess. Utterly unable to stop and think clearly, going to City B and flying to Seattle seemed like instinctive reactions for him. He clearly didn't care about Melissa in his heart, so why did his heart ache upon hearing the news of Melissa's marriage? Even driving him to such impulsive actions, by the time he came to his senses, he was already on a flight to Seattle. The day before the wedding, Melissa belatedly realized it all felt surreal. She actually got married. Although Nathaniel was very good to her, Melissa still felt a faint unease in her heart. Kate noticed her unease and stepped forward to put an arm around her shoulders, comforting her. Relax, from what I've observed, Nathaniel is really great, gentle, and considerate. I heard he was involved in every step of the wedding planning, even specifically asking about your preferences. He had Juliet roses flown in to decorate the venue, saying he wanted to give you the best of everything. He may have a face that keeps strangers at bay, but every time he looks at you, his gaze is exceptionally tender. Even if he stops loving you in the future, at least he won't embarrass you in front of others. Most importantly, he's very generous. As she spoke, Kate lifted Melissa's hand, pointing at the pink diamond on it. Although you could afford these things too, the essence is different. At least Nathaniel is willing to spend money on you, and even if you divorce in the future, you'd still get half of his assets. It's a win-win either way. Kate spoke very pragmatically. In their social circle, most marriages are business alliances, devoid of genuine affection, all for the sake of profit. Melissa left City B 7 years ago and went to Shanghai alone precisely because she didn't want to accept such an arrangement. At that time, she had a big fight with her family and left home in a fit of anger. Even when her family froze her cards, she refused to return. She managed to find a job on her own and even started dating Percival, a pilot. She thought she had found true love and could spend her life with Percival, free from the arranged marriage her family had planned for her. But reality hit her hard. Percival never loved her and never intended to marry her. After 7 years, she was long exhausted and had come to terms with reality, compromising with her parents and accepting the arranged marriage. As the only daughter in the family, her parents naturally doted on her, and the chosen match was certainly not lacking. Indeed, her parents' judgment was sound. Nathaniel truly was an excellent marriage prospect. Snapping out of her thoughts, Melissa gazed at the diamond ring on her ring finger. Indeed, Nathaniel really is a good catch. Kate saw this and smiled knowingly. Come on, take me to see your wedding dress. I heard that Nathaniel found 10 designers in Milan to design it together. It's super luxurious. Let me see it first. With that, Kate led Melissa towards the cloakroom. The off-the-shoulder princess-style train wedding dress was encrusted with diamonds, dazzling and eye-catching. Kate exclaimed from the bottom of her heart, Fufu, you're going to be absolutely stunning tomorrow. Melissa looked at the wedding dress, and a faint sense of anticipation for tomorrow's wedding stirred within her. The next day, on the wedding day, Melissa woke up early to do her makeup, preparing to embrace the most important moment of her life. Meanwhile, Percival arrived in Seattle and, according to his assistant's message, took a boat to the small island where Melissa was holding her wedding. The sea breeze brushed against his face, and faint schools of fish could be seen swimming in the azure waters. But Percival had no mood to enjoy the scenery at this moment. His only thought was to reach the island as quickly as possible and stop Melissa's wedding. Soon, the ship arrived at the island. The island was purchased by Nathaniel and is now private property. Percival was stopped by security as soon as he stepped onto the island. "Sorry, sir, this is a private island and not open to the public. Please turn back." Percival frowned, his tone impatient. "I want to see Nathaniel." The bodyguard was about to refuse when he heard the voice of Emma, Nathaniel's assistant, through his earpiece. "Let him in, take him to Villa 3. Hearing this, the bodyguard stepped forward and said to Percival, "Please follow me." Percival followed the bodyguard into the island. Nathaniel sat in the study, watching Percival's figure on the island's surveillance, and said to Emma, "I don't want any accidents at the wedding." Emma stood aside and nodded respectfully. "Okay, Mr. Nathaniel, I understand." With that, Emma walked out of the study and headed towards Villa No. 3. After the bodyguard brought Percival to the villa, he retreated to guard the door. In the large villa, Percival was alone. He stood in the living room, his brows furrowed. "Where's Nathaniel?" Percival had barely finished speaking when Emma walked in. "Mr. Percival, hello, I'm Mr. Nathaniel's assistant." "Mr. Nathaniel specifically asked me to take good care of you. You've been traveling for so long. You haven't had a good rest yet, have you? Please follow me." The room on the second floor. Emma was interrupted by Percival before she could finish speaking. "Don't change the subject. Where's Nathaniel? I need to see him. And where's Melissa? Where is she?" Emma still wore a perfectly composed smile. "Today is the wedding of Mr. Nathaniel and his wife, so naturally, they are at the wedding venue." As she spoke, Emma turned on the giant television in the villa's living room, which immediately displayed the live footage of the wedding. The wedding venue was adorned with Juliet roses, while lilies of the valley and white tulle drapes on the arched floral stands swayed gently in the sea breeze. Only close friends and family of the couple were present, with the Kane and Lennon families sitting together, chatting amiably. The ceremony soon began, accompanied by the melodious sound of violins and the soft piano melody. Melissa slowly appeared in her wedding dress. Nathaniel wore a hand-tailored Borelli suit as he walked over to Melissa, took her hand, and together they stepped onto the mirrored water platform. The sea breeze gently brushed by, and the sunlight was just right. The water platform reflected their figures, the images gradually drawing closer until they came to a stop at the center. Under the witness of the officiant, the couple recited their wedding vows and exchanged rings. Finally, amidst the blessings of family and friends, Nathaniel gently lifted Melissa's veil and kissed her forehead. Percival watched this scene through the TV, the air around him growing heavier, his eyes tinged with crimson. At the very beginning of the wedding, he had wanted to rush out of the villa and head to the ceremony, but with 8 bodyguards blocking the door, he couldn't leave, forced to watch helplessly as Melissa married Nathaniel. Seeing the scene where Nathaniel gently kissed Melissa, Percival could no longer stand still. He punched the lead bodyguard and was about to charge forward. 2 fists are no match for 4 hands, let alone more than 4. Percival was blocked by the bodyguards, and Emma stepped forward, saying, "Mr. Percival, Mr. Nathaniel has instructed that you rest well first. After the wedding, he will come to see you." Percival, restrained by the bodyguards and unable to move, had no choice but to reluctantly compromise for the time being. He arrived in a hurry, without his assistant by his side. Completely at a disadvantage, Percival cast a cold glance at Emma, shook off the bodyguards, and slowly walked back to the living room. The wedding had ended, and the TV screen went black. Percival sat on the leather sofa, gazing at the clear sky outside the floor-to-ceiling window, his eyes dark as ink. After the conventional wedding ceremony concluded, Melissa changed out of her heavy wedding gown into a dress and entertained relatives and friends together with Nathaniel. Melissa linked arms with Nathaniel and walked up to her parents, her eyes carrying a hint of shyness. "Mom, Dad, over the past 7 years, she had rarely returned home or kept in touch with her parents. Now, seeing them again, she couldn't help but feel a trace of unfamiliarity. no one knows a daughter like her mother. Mrs. Lennon could immediately discern Melissa's thoughts. Mother Lennon stepped forward and gently caressed Melissa's cheek, saying softly, "My daughter is so beautiful." Melissa's eyes instantly welled up, the corners turning red, and her throat choked, unable to utter a sound. Just this one sentence completely broke the 7-year barrier that Melissa had hidden in her heart. Melissa felt a pang in her throat and stepped forward to hug her mother, her voice tinged with a hint of coquetry. "Of course, I am my mother's daughter. If parents truly love their children, they must plan for their long-term future. No one was at fault in that incident back then. It was just a conflict arising from different perspectives." Melissa's mother often reminded her daughter, "Don't dwell on the past, focus only on the future." Now seeing Nathaniel's devotion to Melissa, she and Father Lennon were also relieved. Mother Lennon hugged Melissa and gently patted her shoulder. "All right, go and entertain the guests with him." Hearing this, Melissa stepped out of her mother's embrace, tears still glistened in the corners of her eyes. And Father Lennon raised his hand to gently wipe them away for her. "How old are you? Still crying like a child?" Father Lennon said this while looking at Melissa with satisfaction and adoration. Melissa smiled sheepishly, and Nathaniel patted her hand that was looped through his arm. Raising his eyes to Father and Mother Lennon, he said, "Mom, Dad, don't worry, I'll take good care of Melissa." Father and Mother Lennon nodded in satisfaction, after chatting for a while longer. Nathaniel took Melissa to meet his parents. Melissa politely greeted Melissa's dad, Melissa's mom with a sweet "Mom and Dad." Melissa's mom smiled and nodded, then removed the jade bracelet from her wrist, took Melissa's hand, and slipped it onto hers. "This is the Kane family's heirloom jade bracelet, passed down through generations to the daughter-in-law. Now it's yours." The Kanes never let their own suffer outside. "If anything happens, talk to Nathaniel and let him stand up for you." The weighty jade bracelet on her wrist symbolized the Kane family's acceptance of Melissa. Melissa didn't feign modesty and replied graciously, "All right, thank you, Mom." Melissa's dad simply gave Nathaniel a few words of advice, urging him to treat Melissa well. Before hastily departing, Melissa's mom was completely indifferent to Melissa's dad leaving, and took Melissa and Nathaniel to exchange pleasantries with the Kane family. Melissa had heard from Kate that Nathaniel's parents had a marriage of convenience, with no affection after the wedding. After having Nathaniel, they began to live their own lives separately. Most couples in arranged business marriages within their circle were like this, and no one found it inappropriate. Interests always take precedence over emotions. It wasn't until the afternoon that the wedding was completely over. Melissa held on to Nathaniel's arm, leaning against him unconsciously. With a faint trace of exhaustion between her brows, after all the relatives and friends had left, Nathaniel turned to Melissa and said, "You've worked hard today. Let the secretary take you back to rest. I still have some matters to attend to, and I'll come back to accompany you once I'm done." Melissa nodded in agreement. "All right, go ahead with your work." Then he followed the secretary back to the wedding chamber. After Melissa's figure completely disappeared. Nathaniel turned and walked toward Villa No. 3. Percival contacted his assistant and instructed him to send someone to the island to assist him. Just as his patience was running out, the villa door was pushed open, and Nathaniel walked in against the light. Nathaniel exuded the aura of someone in a position of power, something that Percival, who had grown up with smooth sailing as an heir, lacked. Percival looked at Nathaniel with a cold gaze, even carrying a hint of hostility. Nathaniel walked into the living room and sat down opposite Percival. "Mr. Percival, what brings you here from thousands of miles away?" Percival said in a hostile tone. "I'm here to find my runaway girlfriend, Melissa." Nathaniel was not angered by Percival's provocation and calmly replied, "There is indeed someone here named Melissa, but she is my wife, not your girlfriend." Percival involuntarily raised his voice. "Nathaniel, stop playing dumb. I haven't broken up with Melissa yet. She's still my girlfriend. I want to see her." Nathaniel curled his lips in a mocking smile. "You keep saying Melissa is your girlfriend, but as far as I know, you've never made it public. So what? We've been together for 7 years. Who do you think you are?" Percival retorted dismissively. Hearing this, Nathaniel remained expressionless, though his eyes grew noticeably colder. "I don't care about Melissa's past, but her future can only have me in it." Percival was momentarily stunned by Nathaniel's intimidating aura. Blinded by anger, he had actually forgotten that Nathaniel wasn't someone he could easily provoke. those who oppose Nathaniel never come to a good end. Percival snapped back to reality, took a deep breath to suppress the anger in his heart, and spoke unhurriedly. Just one meeting is enough. I have something to ask her. Nathaniel noticed Percival's sudden change in attitude and thus softened his own emotions. Since Mr. Percival has put it that way, I have no reason to refuse. If she agrees to see you, I won't stand in the way. If she doesn't, then there's nothing I can do. With those words, Nathaniel stood up to leave, but Percival called out to him, I want to see her now. Nathaniel said coldly, Mr. Percival must know what day it is today. Don't push your luck. After speaking, Nathaniel left the villa without looking back. Percival watched Nathaniel's retreating figure, the fury in his eyes almost tangible, yet he could do nothing. Nathaniel left Villa 3 and returned to the marital home he shared with Melissa. Melissa had a quick bite to eat and went to sleep after returning from the wedding. She was still asleep when Nathaniel returned, gently closing the door. Nathaniel turned to the butler and instructed, prepare some food, bring it up when Madam wakes up. The butler nodded in agreement. Very well, sir. Nathaniel turned and went to another room to shower and change clothes. By the time Melissa woke up, it was already 8 p.m. The small lamp by the bed emitted a warm yellow glow. Melissa glanced at the time on her phone and exclaimed, how did I sleep for so long? A message from Nathaniel, sent 3 hours ago, popped up on her phone. The butler has prepared dinner. Come out and eat something to tide you over when you wake up. Seeing this, a wave of warmth immediately flowed through Melissa's heart. Putting down her phone, Melissa got out of bed and prepared to go downstairs for dinner. As soon as she pushed open the bedroom door, she saw Nathaniel working on the couch in the living area of the bedroom. Nathaniel had changed into casual homewear and was sitting on the couch working, wearing a pair of frameless glasses. Melissa, seeing this, slowed her steps to avoid disturbing him. Nathaniel, seeing her come out, he set down his notebook, removed his glasses, and said, don't go downstairs, I'll have the butler bring dinner up. Melissa nodding at his words, she retracted her steps and walked to the living room. Sitting on the single sofa, Nathaniel glancing at the distance between them, he chuckled lightly, why stay so far away? I won't bite. Melissa hadn't expected Nathaniel to be so direct, leaving her momentarily at a loss. No, Nathaniel curled his lips into a smile, interrupting her flustered explanation at the right moment. All right, I was just kidding with you. After speaking, he paused, then continued. Percival is on the island and said he wants to see you and has something to tell you. Do you want to see him? Melissa was stunned, not expecting Percival to actually follow her. After a moment of thought, she shook her head. No, we've already broken up. There's nothing left to say. All right, then let him leave tomorrow. Nathaniel had barely finished speaking when the butler knocked and entered, pushing a dining cart. There was a complete selection of both Chinese and Western cuisine. Melissa once again marveled inwardly at Nathaniel's thoughtfulness. The two chatted while eating. After finishing dinner, the two returned to the bedroom. Melissa had only slept for a few hours and was now wide awake. Leaning against the headboard reading a magazine, Nathaniel emerged from the shower and walked toward her. Still enveloped in the warm steam, Melissa watched as Nathaniel slowly approached, her heartbeat quickening, unable to focus on a single word in the magazine. Nathaniel lifted the blanket and climbed into bed beside her, speaking softly, honey, is that magazine really that interesting? Nathaniel leaned in close, his warm breath brushing against Melissa's neck as he spoke. Melissa's heart trembled, and her cheeks flushed slightly. It's all right, but tonight is our wedding night. Are you sure you want to spend it with a magazine? Nathaniel's deep voice fell into Melissa's ears, like the devil's whisper. They were both adults, so of course she understood what Nathaniel meant. Melissa was no vegetarian either. Nathaniel had made it so obvious that she could no longer play dumb. She put down the magazine, turned to meet Nathaniel's deep gaze, raised her hands to cup his face, and said, our wedding night certainly can't be taken lightly. With those words, Melissa actively pressed her lips to Nathaniel's. Melissa's actions might have been bold, but her crimson-tipped ears had long betrayed her. Nathaniel curved his lips into a smile, reached out, and cupped the back of her neck, taking the initiative and pressing her beneath him. I'll definitely give you a wedding night you'll never forget. The long night stretched on. Brightly lit, the water glass on the bedside table rippled continuously, never still throughout the night. The next day, Melissa woke up feeling sore all over, as if she had been run over by a truck, unable to muster any strength. The moment she moved, A sharp pain shot through her lower back. Just then, Nathaniel walked in, carrying breakfast. Unlike Melissa's fatigue, Nathaniel looked refreshed. Melissa looked at Nathaniel with eyes full of accusation. Nathaniel placed breakfast on the bedside table, then sat beside her and said softly, "I'm sorry, I didn't control my strength well, it won't happen again." Upon hearing this, Melissa's face immediately flushed. "Don't say another word." Nathaniel looked at the blush on her cheeks and smiled. "Okay. I won't say anything more. Have some breakfast. Do you want me to feed you?" "No need, I'll do it myself." As she spoke, Melissa pushed herself up with her arms, but the sudden movement strained her sore lower back. Ouch! Seeing this, Nathaniel reached out to help her up slowly, then picked up the bowl to feed her. Melissa took the bowl from Nathaniel's hands. "I'll do it myself." Nathaniel didn't insist. "All right, rest well today. Tomorrow we'll leave for Tahiti to take you on our honeymoon." "Will it affect your work?" Melissa asked. Nathaniel raised his hand and stroked Melissa's head, comforting her. "No, it's all taken care of. We have plenty of time. You can go anywhere you want. You rest well. There's one last thing to deal with. I'll be back soon." With that, Nathaniel turned and left the bedroom. As soon as he came downstairs, Emma greeted him. "Mr. Nathaniel, Mr. Percival is clamoring to see Madam," Nathaniel said coldly. "Ignore him. Send someone to escort him away later." "All right," Emma acknowledged and then turned to head to Villa No. 3. Percival's face turned very ugly after hearing Emma's words. "Tell Nathaniel, I won't leave without seeing Melissa, Mr. Percival. The ship to take you away is already waiting at the port. Please follow me." Emma's businesslike attitude only fueled the fire of anger in Percival's chest. At that moment, a message popped up on his phone. The assistant had arrived at the island, and the boat was docked at the port. Percival put away his phone and said to Emma, "My people are here, so I won't trouble Mr. Nathaniel." With that, he got up and walked out of the villa. Of course, he couldn't just leave like that. He just wanted to buy time and find an opportunity to see Melissa. This seemed to have become his obsession. No matter what, he had to see Melissa. Perhaps by some stroke of luck, Percival hadn't walked far from the villa when he saw Melissa. Melissa had regained some strength after breakfast. Thinking of Nathaniel's mention of a honeymoon, she decided to go find her best friend Kate to discuss suitable honeymoon destinations. Kate often travels to little-known places, those untouched by human development, with stunning natural landscapes. Compared to popular tourist spots, Melissa prefers these quiet destinations. To her surprise, halfway there, she heard Percival's familiar voice. "Melissa." Melissa stopped in her tracks, instinctively looking back. Just then, Percival strode toward her, and Emma quickly called for the bodyguards to stop him. Before the bodyguards could get close, Percival had already reached Melissa. Emma apologized to Melissa with a guilty expression. "My apologies, Madam, this is my oversight. I'll take Mr. Percival away now." Melissa waved her hand dismissively. "No need, you may all leave. Since we've already met, there's no need to stop you anymore." Melissa was also curious about what Percival wanted to say after chasing her all this way. Emma nodded in agreement and then left with her bodyguards. After they left, Percival was finally able to look at Melissa. Just as he was about to speak, his gaze caught the red marks on Melissa's neck and collarbone. The red marks stung Percival's eyes, and his heart clenched, as if something had been completely lost. Seeing Percival standing still and silent, Melissa frowned, following his gaze. She saw the marks exposed on her skin. Melissa calmly pulled her outer garment closed, covering the red marks, and said coldly, "Percival, what exactly do you want to say?" Hearing this, Percival came back to his senses, and when he looked up again, he had reverted to his usual cold expression. However, the slightly reddened corners of his eyes still betrayed the emotions he was trying to hide. Percival suppressed the stinging pain in his chest and slowly spoke. "Melissa, whether it's real or fake, as long as you come back with me, I can pretend that what happened these past few days never occurred. Didn't you want to marry me? Come with me now, and we'll get our marriage certificate as soon as we get back. I'll give you an even more luxurious wedding, letting everyone know that you are my Percival's wife." Melissa let out a light chuckle. "Percival, the message I sent you is very clear. We've already broken up. I'm married now, and my husband treats me very well. I have no intention of having another wedding, understand?" Hearing Melissa's words, Percival felt a sharp pain spread through his chest. His eyes filled with unwillingness. He tried to find any trace of deception on Melissa's face, but there was none. Melissa stood firm, her gaze steady, letting him scrutinize her. After 7 years with Melissa, Percival had never seen this side of Melissa. A man's pride wouldn't allow him to keep clinging desperately, so Percival averted his gaze and put on an indifferent attitude. If that's how it is, then as you wish, I hope you won't regret it. With those words, Percival turned and left. Melissa cast a brief glance in the direction Percival had departed, then withdrew her gaze and continued walking forward. Percival arrived at the dock, where his assistant approached him. "Mr. Percival, shall we depart now? Let's go." With that, Percival stepped onto the deck and boarded the ship. Leaving without looking back, Percival stood at the bow, watching the island gradually shrink, his heart sinking. Melissa's words replayed in his mind, and the red mark on his neck lingered before his eyes. A mix of emotions surged within him, and Percival raised a hand to his heart, muttering to himself, "I clearly don't love her, so why does my heart hurt so much?" The ship sailed farther away, the island gradually shrinking into a black, before finally disappearing from sight. The damp, salty sea breeze brushed against his skin, Percival, yet he found it oddly comforting, letting the wind caress his face and wash away the ache in his chest. No sooner had he disembarked at the port than Percival received a call from Lesley. Lesley asked worriedly, "Percival, why did it take you so long to answer the phone? Where were you?" Hearing Lesley's concern, Percival felt like he was back to reality, and the frustration he had experienced with Melissa instantly dissipated. "Don't worry, I'll be back soon." As he said this, Percival kept telling himself that he loved Lesley, and that going to see Melissa was just because he couldn't accept her deceiving him, nothing more. Lesley didn't ask further upon hearing this. "When are you coming back?" "I'll pick you up at the airport." "No need, I'll have the butler take you to Sandalwood Palace. Just wait for me at home." For so long, Sandalwood Palace had only housed one woman, Melissa. Now that she's gone, the palace naturally welcomes its new mistress. On the other end of the phone, Lesley was visibly stunned by Percival's words. She had hinted countless times before about wanting to move into Sandalwood Palace. Percival would either change the subject or ask her to wait a little longer. This left her feeling very insecure, constantly worrying whether Percival had truly fallen in love with Melissa. Now, it seems she still won. Lesley immediately agreed after regaining her composure. "Okay, I'll wait for you at home." After hanging up the phone, Percival and his assistant boarded the flight back home. Sitting on the plane, looking at the clouds outside the window, Percival still felt a sense of unreality, and recalling what he had done these past few days, he still found it utterly absurd. He actually came all this way for Melissa. Those 7 years with Melissa felt like a dream, and even the memories of Melissa in his mind seemed to have been instantly wiped clean, leaving him unable to recall anything. His mind was like a tangled ball of yarn, impossible to unravel, a complete mess. Since he couldn't remember, he decided not to dwell on it. Percival closed his eyes and began to sleep. The nerves that had been tense for days finally relaxed at this moment. Melissa and Kate discussed several suitable honeymoon destinations before taking the iPad to find Nathaniel. Nathaniel was sitting on the villa's terrace reading a book at that moment, with the breeze lifting the strands of hair on his forehead, revealing his delicate profile, mature yet still carrying a youthful charm. Melissa watched this scene, her heart skipping a beat, as the flutter of her teenage years crept back into her heart after so many years. At this moment, Nathaniel also noticed Melissa standing at the door. Seeing her staring at him, he asked, "Why don't you come in?" Melissa was caught peeking and felt embarrassed. She composed herself, walked up to Nathaniel, and handed him the tablet she was holding. "I think these places are also very suitable for a honeymoon. What do you think?" Nathaniel took the tablet and flipped through the travel guide that Melissa and Kate had put together. "Malta, Slovenia, Estonia. Okay, whatever makes you happy." The marriage registration and wedding were too rushed, leaving you feeling uninvolved, so I can only make it up to you with the honeymoon. Melissa met Nathaniel's sincere gaze and felt her ears secretly turn red. She was clearly past the age of youthful infatuation, yet she couldn't help being drawn to Nathaniel. She put away her tablet and sat on the lounge chair beside Nathaniel, trying to calm her emotions. Nathaniel closed the book in his hand, set it aside, and looked at Melissa. "You must have been to many places when you worked as a travel consultant before. With you on this honeymoon trip, it should be quite different." Nathaniel has a face that keeps strangers at bay, yet every word he says makes Melissa blush and her heart race. To avoid being affected by Nathaniel, she could only keep recalling the places she had traveled to in her mind. it's good that you trust me. So, after we visit Tahiti, we'll go to Malta. I've been there many times and know lots of hidden spots others don't. I'll take you to check them all out, guaranteed to give you a unique experience. And also this, Melissa chattered away, completely forgetting her earlier discomfort as she talked about travel-related matters. Nathaniel listened attentively to Melissa's explanations, gradually becoming captivated by her. As Melissa described the scenes, he could almost visualize the images she painted in his mind. Nathaniel was increasingly drawn to the confidence in Melissa's eyes, a confidence that came from within, an absolute certainty in herself. In high society arranged marriages, investigating each other's backgrounds before obtaining a marriage certificate is an essential step, and Nathaniel was no exception. When looking at Melissa's profile, Nathaniel had already marveled at Melissa's excellence. She was a top student in school, proficient in various outdoor sports like horseback riding, archery, and rock climbing. Most importantly, Melissa mastered 10 languages. As the eldest daughter of the Lennon family, with these added advantages, many naturally sought marriage alliances with the Lennon family. When he saw Melissa run away from home due to dissatisfaction with family rules, Nathaniel was slightly shocked. Melissa, when she went to Shanghai, she was penniless and refused help from friends, relying solely on her own efforts to find a job she loved. She loves traveling and speaks multiple languages, using these strengths to her utmost advantage, so Nathaniel did not refuse when he learned that his arranged marriage partner was Melissa, and after a brief consideration, he nodded in agreement. Melissa's career was smooth sailing, but her love life was fraught with thorns. Percival had a playful nature. After getting together with Melissa, he brought her to live in his home but never publicly acknowledged their relationship. After 7 years together, Percival could be counted on one hand the number of times he came home. Even so, Melissa still chose to stay with him. Fortunately, she later came to her senses in time and decided to walk away, pulling his thoughts back. Nathaniel looked at Melissa with a hint of admiration in his eyes. It is both an affirmation and a relief. Relief that he married Melissa. Melissa only realized after finishing her honeymoon guide that she had spoken too much. Unconsciously treating Nathaniel like a client, she put away her tablet and apologized to Nathaniel. I unconsciously slipped back into work mode. I'm sorry. Nathaniel smiled and shook his head. It's fine. I think what you said was great. Just listening to it made me feel like I was already there. I'm really looking forward to this trip. Melissa felt a surge of excitement after being affirmed by Nathaniel. Everyone likes to be praised, and Melissa was no exception. After the joy, Melissa suddenly remembered the unexpected encounter with Percival. She then looked up at Nathaniel and said truthfully, I just ran into Percival on the road. He said a lot of nonsense to me, and I sent him away. If he shows up again in the future, let me know in advance so I can avoid him. Out of sight, out of mind. Emma informed Nathaniel about the incident as soon as it happened. Originally, Nathaniel thought Melissa wouldn't tell him, as it was her private matter. To his surprise, Melissa volunteered the information, and when she spoke, her expression was completely calm, without a trace of lingering attachment. This came as Nathaniel a great surprise. He had thought that after 7 years with Melissa and Percival, their sudden breakup would surely leave her with some sadness and reluctance. Yet, Melissa's eyes showed none of these emotions. She merely stated the facts calmly, as if Percival were nothing more than a distant stranger to her. Melissa, after saying this, she waited for Nathaniel's reaction. Nathaniel under her gaze, he nodded. All right, if you have any other requests, just mention them. I'll help you solve everything. The feeling of having someone to back her up was truly wonderful. Melissa smiled faintly. Nothing for now. I'll let you know if I think of anything later. With that, she stood up and prepared to return to her room. The movement of getting up was a bit too large, and the outer garment that was originally draped over her body slipped down her shoulders, revealing red marks on her neck and collarbone. Nathaniel saw this. His Adam's apple bobbed, and he felt a surge of heat in his chest. Recalling the scene of Melissa struggling to get up in the morning, Nathaniel hesitantly asked, Does your back still hurt? Is there anywhere else on your body that feels uncomfortable? Melissa listened to Nathaniel's words and instantly recalled her embarrassing morning in front of him. Subconsciously, she picked up the cushion from the lounge chair and threw it at Nathaniel, her face flushed with shyness. Nathaniel, how can you even say that? Nathaniel chuckled as he caught the cushion, then quickly spoke to appease the flustered Melissa. All right, I won't say another word. I'll give you a massage tonight as an apology, okay? Melissa's face turned even redder upon hearing this. I don't want it, you're not allowed to touch me tonight. With that, she fled into the villa as if escaping. Nathaniel held the pillow, a smile in his eyes, and an unknown feeling arose in his heart, a feeling of infatuation that he hadn't experienced in a long time. Their relationship seemed to grow closer through this playful interaction. The relatives and friends who attended the wedding left on the same day the wedding ended. Only Kate was reluctant to leave such a beautiful island and decided to stay for a few more days. When Melissa and Nathaniel left the island, Kate was sunbathing, smiling and waving to them. Fufu, you and Mr. Nathaniel have a good time. Try to come back and let me be promoted to godmother. Melissa listened to Kate's words. Wishing she could crawl into a hole, she quickly pulled Nathaniel onto the boat, afraid that Kate might say something even more outrageous. The ship soon sailed away from the island, and Melissa sat on the deck, feeling the salty sea breeze, her mood utterly joyful. At that moment, it was as if she had returned to 7 years ago, to that carefree time when she could recklessly spend her youth without a worry. Just then, Nathaniel approached from behind her and draped a shawl over her shoulders. The wind is strong. Be careful not to catch a cold. The shawl was warm, and its warmth went straight from her shoulders into her heart. Nathaniel's gentleness and thoughtfulness made her unable to resist falling for him. But even if Nathaniel treated her so well, she still didn't dare to give her heart again. 7 years with Percival made her dare not believe in love anymore. Moreover, theirs was merely a marriage of convenience. She feared falling for Nathaniel, only for Nathaniel to be as indifferent to her as Percival had been. Percival was truly good to her when he wanted to be, but he also hurt her the most. Now, when Nathaniel is kind to her, she accepts it wholeheartedly. When he isn't, she doesn't complain. After all, Nathaniel has given her far more than Percival ever did. Having figured this out, Melissa felt more at ease when interacting with Nathaniel. Melissa adjusted the shawl on her shoulders and turned to thank Nathaniel. Thank you, dear. It's really getting a bit cold. I'll head inside the cabin first. With that, Melissa turned and descended the deck. Walking back to the cabin, Nathaniel stood frozen in place, his ears still ringing with Melissa's recent words. Thank you, dear, though he didn't understand why Melissa's attitude had changed so suddenly. Hearing her call him that still made him very happy. He originally thought that after the marriage, his relationship with Melissa would be as cold and distant as his parents. He was prepared for Melissa to treat him with cold indifference. But unexpectedly, Melissa didn't follow the script and turned out to be completely different from what he imagined. This made Nathaniel start looking forward to the life ahead. Nathaniel and Melissa, after leaving the island and arriving in Seattle, immediately boarded a private jet arranged by Nathaniel, heading straight to Tahiti. The scenery in Tahiti is even more beautiful than in Seattle, with crystal clear seawater that refracts enchanting light under the sun. Melissa put on her diving gear and took Nathaniel underwater to see the coral reefs. Nathaniel hadn't enjoyed a vacation since adulthood, let alone traveled for leisure. This honeymoon trip was originally meant to compensate Melissa, thinking they'd casually visit a few tourist spots, but unexpectedly, Melissa kept surprising him. She had planned everything perfectly. Nathaniel had never felt like this before, eagerly anticipating tomorrow and the next leg of their journey. What was supposed to be a 2-week honeymoon was extended by Nathaniel to a full month. After all these years, he deserves to take a vacation. So for this past month, Melissa has taken him around the world, stopping at every destination to take photos and personally craft souvenirs. These were things Melissa used to do alone, but now having someone by her side feels rather nice. As the journey progressed, the two grew closer, becoming more familiar with each other. With everything moving in a positive direction, but on the other hand, Percival was the complete opposite. Percival had been absent-minded every day since returning from Seattle. Lesley changed the original decor layout after moving into the Tang Palace, completely erasing any traces of Melissa's presence. Percival was aware of Lesley's actions. Though he felt somewhat uncomfortable, he said nothing, returning from Seattle. The night I landed in Shanghai was also Lesley's first day moving into the Tang Palace. Lesley personally cooked a table full of dishes for Percival, all of which were his favorites. The food was delicious, but Percival found it utterly tasteless. Percival, this 8-treasure chicken is your favorite, try it quickly. As she spoke, Lesley placed a piece of chicken into Percival's bowl, while serving the dishes. She inadvertently revealed the red marks on the back of her hand from being splattered by hot oil. Percival naturally noticed and immediately had the butler bring the first aid kit to apply medicine to Lesley. "Leave these things to the servants. There's no need for you to do them yourself." Lesley pursed her lips and spoke slowly. "It's different when I do it. What I'm making isn't just food, it's my longing for you. I couldn't reach you for so long. I was really worried." Hearing this, Percival paused for a moment while applying the ointment. "Next time, I'll let you know where I'm going in advance, so you won't have to worry." Lesley only felt relieved after hearing Percival's words, smiling as she threw herself into Percival's arms and whispered, "Percival, I missed you so much." Percival gently patted Lesley's back before pushing her away. "I'm a bit tired. I'll head upstairs first. If you're missing anything in your room, just let the butler know." With that, Percival turned and left, going upstairs to his own room. Lesley watched Percival's retreating figure, her eyes filled with resentment. She couldn't believe Percival hadn't understood her hints, yet Percival pushed her away, showing no desire to be close to her at all. Looking at the barely touched food on the table, Lesley grew even angrier and simply returned to her room. Percival did not share a room with Lesley, only arranging for her to stay in the guest bedroom while he remained in the master bedroom he had once shared with Melissa. After showering, he changed into a silk robe and lay down on the bed, ready to rest. But no matter what, he couldn't fall asleep. Though physically exhausted, the moment he closed his eyes, his mind was completely filled with images of Melissa. He instinctively reached out to embrace someone beside him, only to grasp at empty air. Percival stared blankly at the empty space beside him, lost in thought. A knock at the door pulled Percival back from his memories. He got up to answer it and saw Lesley standing there in a wine-red spaghetti-strap nightgown, holding a bottle of red wine. Percival paused. "What's wrong?" Lesley swirled the red wine in her hand and smiled faintly. "Can't sleep, care for a drink." Her slip perfectly accentuated her figure, and her eyes were alluring, their gazes intertwined in the air. And Percival's throat involuntarily tightened. He moved aside, making space. "All right." The Petrus red wine slowly flowed down the glass, but Percival's attention wasn't on the wine, but on the person pouring it. Lesley noticed Percival's direct gaze, and a determined glint flashed in her eyes. She raised the stemmed glass in her hand and gently clinked it against the glass in front of Percival. The glass walls clinked with a crisp sound. Lesley raised her glass, took a small sip, and her fair neck tilted slightly, revealing a graceful curve. Percival is a normal man, with a beauty before him. He naturally couldn't remain unmoved. His Adam's apple bobbed, and the next second, he reached out to pull Lesley up. Encircling her in his arms, Lesley let out a startled cry, spilling most of the red wine in her glass, soaking her nightgown and staining Percival's eyes crimson. Percival lowered his head to kiss Lesley's lips, the sweetness of the red wine lingering between them. Lesley actively wrapped her arms around Percival's neck, deepening the kiss. Percival's hand slid inward along the hem of her skirt, but he paused just as he was about to proceed further. Lesley sensed something was amiss and asked, "Percival, what's wrong?" He withdrew his hand and gently pushed Lesley away. "I'm a bit tired. You should head back first." Lesley froze instantly. Percival clearly had feelings for her, yet he stopped himself abruptly and was even trying to send her away. Unwilling to give up, she hugged Percival tighter. "But you clearly..." Percival didn't wait for Lesley to finish speaking before removing her hand from his shoulder. The lust in his eyes faded, and his tone was devoid of warmth. "I don't want to repeat myself." Lesley met Percival's cold gaze and slowly withdrew her hand. Time and again, she humbled herself to show goodwill, but all she received in return was Percival's disdain. Lesley had also lost patience by this point. She got off Percival's lap, said nothing, and turned to leave. The door slammed shut, and the room instantly fell silent. Percival sat by the floor-to-ceiling window, looking at the dark night sky, his brows furrowed with irritation. He picked up the red wine on the table and drank it in one gulp. He clearly had feelings for Lesley, but just as his hand touched Lesley's skin, the image of Melissa suddenly flashed through his mind. At the same time, a voice in his heart told him he couldn't do this. Melissa would be hurt if she found out. Reason prevailed, so he drove Lesley away, but after coming to his senses, he realized that Melissa was already married, and even if she knew, she probably wouldn't be hurt. During their 7 years together, such incidents were not uncommon. Melissa used to argue with him over these matters at first, but somehow, Melissa stopped bothering about them later. he initially thought Melissa had matured. But it turned out, Melissa had simply fallen out of love. Because there was no love, there was no care. Percival drank glass after glass of red wine, trying to drown the bitterness in his heart. The next day, he was awakened by the morning sunlight piercing through. Upon waking, he found himself lying on the carpet by the floor-to-ceiling window. Having fallen asleep there, his temples throbbed, and a dull ache pulsed through his brain. As he went downstairs, Lesley sat in the dining room eating breakfast. Dressed in a sky-blue uniform, Lesley only glanced briefly at Percival before looking away. The humiliation from last night was still vivid in her mind. Lesley held back her anger. Unwilling to share the same space with Percival, she stood up, grabbed her carry-on suitcase, and was about to leave when Percival stopped her. Lesley was seething inside but showed no sign of it on her face. Is there something urgent? If not, we can talk when I get back. I have a flight to catch. Percival knew Lesley was still angry about what happened last night. He was indeed in the wrong. Lesley was his first love and the first woman he ever loved. So naturally, he was willing to be more patient with her. Percival softened his tone. I was at fault last night, and I apologize. I haven't been in a good state lately, but once I sort myself out, I'll be back to fly the same route with you. Percival, since he had offered a way out. Lesley had no reason not to take it, curling her lips into a faint smile. Don't bring up the past. I'll wait for you to come back and fly a leg with me. I'm running out of time, so I'm leaving now. With those words, Lesley stood on tiptoe and planted a light kiss on Percival's lips, then walked away dragging her carry-on suitcase. Percival stood frozen in place, his lips still tingling with the warmth of Lesley, yet for some inexplicable reason, a faint sense of disgust welled up from the depths of his heart. Subconsciously, he raised his hand to wipe the spot where Lesley had just kissed him, then turned and went upstairs to shower. After that day, Percival forced himself not to think about Melissa. When he saw Lesley altering the layout of the Sandalwood Palace, though displeased, he did not stop her, as if changing the layout could erase Melissa's influence on him. That day, Percival sat in the study attending to his work. Lesley knocked and entered. Percival, do you still want that box of things in the corner of the dressing room? What things? Percival asked. Lesley thought for a moment and replied, some clothes and accessories, some still unopened. Percival suddenly remembered upon hearing this that they were gifts from Melissa. He had intended to say throw them all away, but the words caught in his throat. I'll go take a look. With that, he put down the documents in his hand and headed to the cloakroom. Melissa's gifts to him were casually tossed into a box. Percival bent down to pick up one of the small boxes, opening it to reveal an exquisite brooch inside. The diamond on it sparkled brilliantly, clearly chosen with great care. In the past, he had looked down on Melissa's purchases, thinking that as just a tour guide, the gifts she bought couldn't be expensive, likely just local handmade souvenirs from her travels. Unworthy of grand occasions, so he had never opened them, nor worn them out even once. Now that I've opened it, I realize Melissa's thoughtfulness. Even a small brooch is so exquisite, you must have put a lot of thought into choosing it. Percival put away the brooch, placed it back in its original position, then turned to Lesley and said, leave it there. I bought it earlier but forgot to open it. I'll sort it out tonight. Lesley asked, puzzled. Wouldn't it be fine to just leave it to the servants? Percival shook his head. No need. Seeing his insistence, Lesley didn't press further and turned to take the servants to tidy up the other rooms. Percival went to the dressing room to organize the gifts Melissa had given him. After finishing his work, he took out the items inside, opening and arranging them one by one. The suits, ties, cufflinks, and trench coat chains were all exquisitely crafted, clearly reflecting the giver's thoughtful intentions. He should have thrown all these things away, but for some reason, he just couldn't bring himself to do it, as if discarding these gifts would mean severing all ties between him and Melissa. After neatly arranging the items, Percival walked out of the wardrobe. In the days that followed, Percival continued his routine as usual, flying various routes with Lesley. Melissa and Nathaniel's month-long honeymoon around the world was drawing to a close. Their final stop was Semporna. When leaving Semporna, Nathaniel felt unexpectedly reluctant to depart. This month-long honeymoon was arguably the happiest time he had experienced thus far. Although Nathaniel hid his emotions well, Melissa still noticed. On the flight back from City B to Semporna, Melissa held Nathaniel's hand and said, we don't have time this trip, but next time I'll take you to Rovaniemi to see the aurora. The northern lights there are especially beautiful, you'll absolutely love it. Upon hearing this, Nathaniel felt a warm current flow through his heart. They say travel is the best way to test a relationship. During this journey, whether it was personality or preferences, he and Melissa surprisingly matched well. Their feelings gradually grew warmer, from the initial unfamiliarity and distance to the current deep affection, as if they were a couple deeply in love. Nathaniel squeezed Melissa's hand back, a smile in his eyes. Okay, I'm looking forward to it. No sooner had he spoken than Melissa heard a familiar female voice from beside them. Hello, I'm the flight attendant for this flight. I will be serving you both throughout the journey. For breakfast, would you prefer Chinese or Western? For Chinese, we have, but she stopped mid-sentence. Melissa looked up, just in time to meet Lesley's shocked gaze. The flight attendant scheduled for first class today had an emergency. Lesley had to step in, but she never expected to run into Melissa. She really wanted to ask Melissa why she was here, but she was on duty, and professionalism wouldn't allow her to do so. Lesley composed herself and continued introducing the in-flight meals to Nathaniel and Melissa. Nathaniel glanced at Lesley's face and immediately remembered who she was. Percival, the first love who broke up due to infidelity. After listening to Lesley's introduction of the meal options, Nathaniel turned to Melissa and asked, "Which one would you like?" Melissa pondered for a moment before replying, "Chinese cuisine, please, 2 Chinese meals," Nathaniel said to Lesley. Lesley smiled and nodded. "Okay, if you need any other services, just let me know, I won't disturb you two here." With that, Lesley turned and left. Since Lesley was serving this flight, the captain must be Percival. Thinking of this, Melissa felt only annoyance. The world was so small, with so many flights. How could she have encountered the 2 people she least wanted to see? Seeing Melissa upset, Nathaniel pulled her into his arms. "What's wrong? Tired from last night?" Hearing this, Melissa gave Nathaniel a reproachful look before reaching out to swat him. "Do people outside know the famous Mr. Nathaniel is this improper in private?" Nathaniel took her hand and gently kissed it. "No one else needs to know, as long as you do." Melissa's earlobes flushed slightly as she averted her gaze from Nathaniel. Nestling into his arms to find a comfortable position, Nathaniel effortlessly wrapped his arms around Melissa, enveloping her in his distinctive oud fragrance. Melissa gradually relaxed, unaware of the moment she drifted into sleep. When she woke up again, the plane was 1 hour away from landing in City B. After having a light snack to fill her stomach, she began waiting for the plane to land. 1 hour later, they landed in City B. Nathaniel and Melissa took the VIP channel immediately after disembarking. Meanwhile, Percival and his group disembarked from the plane, ready to head to the hotel for some rest. Percival, dressed in a white uniform, led the way, with Lesley walking beside him. Just then, Percival saw Melissa and Nathaniel preparing to get into a car and leave. Without a second thought, he lifted his foot, ready to chase after them, but as soon as he moved, his wrist was grabbed by Lesley. "Percival, this is the airport." Upon hearing this, Percival stopped in his tracks, instantly regaining his composure. By the time he looked again, the 2 had already left. He didn't know what had come over him just now. The moment he saw Melissa, he couldn't help but want to get closer. Percival looked away, composed himself, and continued walking. The accompanying crew went to the hotel to rest, while Percival took Lesley to his residence in City B. After this voyage, Percival will not undertake any more flight missions this year. As the heir to HY Aviation, he has always been reluctant to take over the company. The reason, like marriage, is that Percival feels he is still young and wants to enjoy a few more years of freedom. However, ever since Melissa left, he suddenly felt he had had enough of playing around and lost interest in everything. Coupled with the pressure from his family, he decided to end his flight missions and prepare to take over the company. This trip to City B was to attend a charity auction. Lesley attended as his female companion. Upon arriving at Shishanmelu, the villa manager and a group of servants came out to greet them. After handing his luggage to the servants, Percival went upstairs to shower and rest. This was the first time Lesley had been to this villa, and the butler was showing her around. On the other side, after Nathaniel and Melissa left the airport, the driver took them back to their marital home, Building 11. Upon arriving home, the butler came out to greet them. After Nathaniel went upstairs and changed his clothes, he was ready to go out. Melissa, seeing this, asked, "Aren't you going to rest?" Nathaniel explained, "I have an urgent meeting to attend." "You should rest well. There's a charity auction in 3 days, and a designer will be coming over soon to help you choose a gown. I'm leaving now." With that, Nathaniel kissed Melissa on the corner of her lips, then left with his assistant. Melissa had long grown accustomed to Nathaniel's frequent kisses and hugs. They were husband and wife, so such actions were perfectly normal. Moreover, Melissa didn't reject Nathaniel's closeness. She quite enjoyed the feeling of being valued. The designer and stylist arrived together, filling the living room with dresses from various brands. Based on Melissa's preferences and figure, the stylist selected a wine-red satin strapless gown, paired with a Cartier teardrop diamond necklace and diamond ring, enhancing her presence while maintaining her unique charm. Melissa was very pleased with this look. She also picked out a suit for Nathaniel that matched her own dress. Melissa loved the touch of red on the notched lapel suit, as it perfectly matched her dress. After choosing her dress, Melissa asked the butler to prepare the car. She was ready to go home. The Lennon family's home was a courtyard house, located next to the Forbidden City. The furnishings in the house were still the same as before. Knowing their daughter was coming home, Melissa's parents had returned early and prepared a table full of dishes. Melissa had dinner at home. Nathaniel came to pick her up after work at Lennon's house, and the two went home together. Even after marriage, nothing changed. Melissa was very satisfied with her current life. Time flew by. On the day of the auction, Nathaniel and Melissa changed into formal attire and set off for the hotel hosting the charity auction. Meanwhile, Percival and Lesley also set off for the auction. The 2 cars arrived at the hotel simultaneously, and after getting out, the 4 people's gazes met in the air. Percival and Lesley were filled with shock the moment they saw Melissa. Melissa's expression remained unchanged. She didn't even spare them a glance, and walked into the hotel arm in arm with Nathaniel. Percival's heart tightened sharply, and his throat constricted as he saw Melissa. Lesley felt an inexplicable unease rise in her heart upon seeing Melissa, especially when she noticed Percival staring intently at Melissa's retreating figure. Her unease instantly amplified. "Percival, let's go in." Lesley tugged on Percival's arm, forcing his attention back. Percival came back to his senses and nodded. Okay. Melissa and Nathaniel sat in the front row. Percival and Lesley were seated in the middle, not far apart, and Percival could clearly see every move Melissa made. After everyone was seated, the auction officially began. The auctioneer took the stage and began introducing the items for this auction. Nathaniel turned to Melissa and said, "If you like anything, bid on it." "Okay." Melissa nodded in agreement. She had her eye on a fully green jade necklace before coming, determined to bid on it. The item on stage at the moment was a diamond ring. A dazzling aquamarine diamond was set in a platinum base, making it very striking. Lesley was immediately drawn to the diamond ring, tugging on Percival's sleeve and saying, "Percival, I want this diamond ring." Percival gazed at the diamond ring on the stage, lost in thought. Suddenly, he remembered the pink diamond ring Melissa had worn at HW at the time. He thought Melissa was pressuring him into marriage by buying the ring, and it had angered him for a long time. Now, looking back, he realized Melissa had no such intention. She was simply choosing an engagement ring for Nathaniel. At this thought, Percival felt a surge of irritation rise within him. Lesley noticed Percival staring blankly at the diamond ring on stage and gently tugged at him. Percival snapped out of his daze, took a deep breath, and then said to Lesley, "All right. If you like it, we'll buy it." With that, Percival raised his bidding paddle and began to bid. Melissa heard Percival's bidding voice and instinctively turned to look, her gaze accidentally meeting Percival's eyes. Percival locked eyes with Melissa, his heart suddenly trembling. Then a barely perceptible flicker of dark satisfaction flashed through his gaze as his bids grew increasingly extravagant. In the end, Percival won the bid for the diamond ring at a price of 15 million. Lesley, upon seeing this, her eyes filled with joy, her lips curling uncontrollably. "Percival, thank you," Percival casually replied, "as long as you like it." Though these words were directed at Lesley, his gaze remained fixed on Melissa. Melissa had just turned to look at him. Did that mean she still cared deeply about the ring incident? Thinking this way, Percival felt much better. In the following auction, Melissa won the bid for that emerald necklace and some other jewelry, intending to gift them to Mrs. Lennon and Melissa's mom. After the auction, everyone headed to the banquet hall for the evening dinner. Melissa linked arms with Nathaniel as they walked toward the banquet hall. No sooner had they entered than someone approached to strike up a conversation with Nathaniel. Wave after wave, an endless stream of people came. Melissa stayed for a while, then leaned into Nathaniel's ear and whispered, "I'm going to the restroom first." Nathaniel nodded upon hearing this. Melissa released Nathaniel and walked toward the restroom. Just out of the restroom, I was suddenly pulled into the stairwell by a hand. The sound of the door closing was a bit loud, triggering the motion sensor light in the stairwell to flicker on. Melissa used the light to see the person in front of her clearly, Percival. She shook off Percival's grip and moved past him to leave. Percival stood in front of her. "Melissa, don't go yet. I have something to tell you." He blocked the exit, and Melissa was forced to stop. "Say what you need to say quickly. My husband is still waiting for me outside." Percival was stunned, his brows furrowing even deeper. "Melissa, with your status, it's impossible for Nathaniel to truly be with you. Rich men like him change women faster than they change clothes. Trust me, I wouldn't lie to you. You should leave him as soon as possible, otherwise you'll be the one who gets hurt in the end. I'll take you back to Shanghai. If you want to get married, we'll get our marriage certificate as soon as we get back. What kind of diamond ring do you want? I'll buy it for you. The blue diamond from the auction just now. I'll have someone deliver it to you after the dinner. How about we use that as our wedding ring?" Seeing Melissa still staring at him expressionlessly, unmoved, Percival continued, "If you don't like that blue diamond, then pick one you do like. I'll buy it for you. As long as you come back with me." Melissa met Percival's gaze and slowly asked, "What about Lesley?" Percival stiffened. When he saw Melissa alone earlier, he had chased after her without a second thought, completely forgetting about Lesley. Now, hearing Melissa mention Lesley, Percival belatedly realized that perhaps he no longer cared as much about Lesley. Thinking of this, Percival stepped forward, took Melissa's hand, met her gaze, and confessed, "Melissa, it was only after you left that I realized I had already fallen in love with you. Being with Lesley was just because of youthful reluctance and lingering attachment to my first love. Don't worry, I'll make it clear to her soon. It's you I love, and it's you I want to marry. Come away with me." "Okay." Melissa shook off his hand and sneered coldly, "Percival, your love is something I can't afford. I'm very happy now. My husband and I have a great relationship. I won't divorce. Nor will I go back with you. We've already broken up. A decent ex should act as if they're dead. So don't show up in front of me again." With those words, Melissa walked past Percival, pushed open the stairwell door, and prepared to return to the banquet hall. Percival grabbed her wrist again and said in a deep voice, "Melissa, the social gap between you and him is too vast. Nathaniel can't be sincere with you. Trust me." Hearing this, Melissa said nothing, shook off Percival's hand, and left directly. When she returned to the banquet hall, Melissa saw a beautiful woman talking to Nathaniel. Nathaniel's expression cold. Melissa saw the woman staring unblinkingly at Nathaniel, her gaze far from ordinary. Seeing this, Melissa unconsciously quickened her pace. Upon reaching Nathaniel, she naturally looped her arm through his. "Honey, I'm back." Nathaniel watched Melissa's movement, a faint smile tugging at his lips as he wrapped an arm around her waist. Turning to Melissa, he said, "This is the heiress of the JG Group, Julia." With that, he turned to Julia and said, "Ms. Julia, let me introduce you. This is my wife, Melissa." Julia heard this and looked Melissa up and down, a hint of disdain curling at the corner of her lips. "As far as I know, Miss Melissa used to be a tour guide, right? Such a background might not be qualified enough for the position of Kane family's madam." With that, Julia smiled at Nathaniel. "Mr. Nathaniel, I believe we'll meet again soon." Melissa was no pushover. With such provocation, she naturally couldn't tolerate it. Her eyes immediately turned cold. "Whether I'm qualified or not is not for an outsider like you to judge. I thought everyone attending a charity auction would be cultured, but I didn't expect." The rest of the words Melissa didn't utter, but the contemptuous look in her eyes when she looked at Julia said it all. Before Julia could even speak, Nathaniel continued, "Miss Julia, instead of concerning yourself with my marital life, perhaps you should pay more attention to your own company's tax issues." With that, Nathaniel gave Julia a polite smile and left with Melissa. Julia, humiliated, couldn't swallow her pride and shouted at their retreating figures, "Nathaniel, she's just a tour guide, utterly unworthy of you. You'll regret this one day." The two stood still, and Melissa turned back to look at Julia once more. Just as she was about to speak, the banquet host announced from the stage, "Tonight's auction has been a tremendous success. Thanks to the support of all our esteemed guests, we've received all the generous donations, but I must highlight some wonderful news. The heiress of the Lennon family conglomerate, Melissa, has made an additional donation of 100 million yuan, dedicated to supporting underprivileged girls in rural areas. Let's express our gratitude to Melissa for her extraordinary generosity. The host led the applause, and the crowd in the banquet hall followed suit with enthusiastic clapping. Julia looked at Melissa in shock. Also stunned were Lesley and Percival, who had just entered the banquet hall. Percival stood frozen in place. Lennon family group, Melissa, donated 100 million yuan. He recognized each of these words individually, Percival, but when put together, they felt utterly unfamiliar to him. Even in my heart, I thought it must be someone with the same name as Melissa. If Melissa were the daughter of the Lennon family, how could she work as a tour guide and willingly be his secret lover for 7 years? Percival kept deceiving himself. Yet the truth was right before his eyes. All eyes were fixed on Melissa. With the murmurs of the crowd filling the air, those who knew Melissa couldn't help but sigh with emotion. So it really is Melissa standing next to Mr. Nathaniel. They said the Kane and Lennon families were uniting through marriage. I didn't believe it, but it turns out to be true. I heard the eldest daughter of the Lennon family ran away from home 8 years ago and hasn't been seen much in the capital's social circles for the past 7 years. It's normal you wouldn't recognize her. Those who didn't know Melissa began whispering inquiries. The Lennon family. Is it the Lennon family I know? In the entire city B, how many families could offer 100 million? It must be the capital's Lennon family. Who would have thought Ms. Melissa would be so generous? Her first public appearance in 8 years, and she immediately spends 100 million. Amid the endless murmurs of the crowd, Percival felt a wave of dizziness. He knew that the Lennon family in the capital, whose status in City B was no less than that of the Kane family, were all entities that could not be provoked at will. Melissa left home 8 years ago and worked alone in Shanghai. Later, she got together with him, and during that time, she never mentioned anything about her family. The only time she wanted to take him home, it ended in an unpleasant parting. At that time, he could never have connected Melissa with the Lennon family in the capital. Even when he later learned that she had married Nathaniel, he never thought about it that way, simply because Melissa had hidden herself too well during the 7 years she was with him, and her information was also very well protected. Recalling how he had just been painstakingly persuading Melissa and Nathaniel to divorce, Percival felt like a complete joke. Meanwhile, Julia was so shocked she couldn't even form a coherent sentence. You're actually that Melissa from the Lennon family. Melissa smiled faintly. That's right. Now, do you think I'm qualified enough, Miss Julia? Julia felt a cold sweat break out on her back, her body trembling uncontrollably, unable to utter another word. Nathaniel cast a casual glance at Julia, then wrapped his arm around Melissa's waist and walked away with her. Halfway there, Melissa tugged at Nathaniel's sleeve and whispered, Nathaniel, do you think I'm being a bit petty? Nathaniel smiled, his thumb gently stroking Melissa's waist as he said softly, No, I like it. As he spoke, Nathaniel's eyes were filled with warmth, and his tone carried no hint of deception. Melissa met his gaze but quickly averted her eyes. Hurrying to the dessert table in front of her, she picked up a random sweet and began eating, trying to mask her wildly pounding heart. At that moment, Percival and Lesley approached her. Lesley stood frozen in place, unable to snap out of it after learning Melissa's true identity. She never dreamed in her wildest imagination that Melissa would be a member of the Lennon family, let alone the heiress of the Lennon family, a genuine wealthy socialite. Recalling how Percival had abandoned her to chase after Melissa, she now felt utterly panicked inside. Melissa's current status is more than a match for Percival, completely beyond question. Although she is married now, she willingly stayed by Percival's side for 7 years without a title, which shows her feelings for Percival. Now that her identity has been exposed, and Percival has never been able to let her go, if they get back together, then she will have no chance with Percival anymore. Lesley felt more and more unwilling the more she thought about it, so she was inexplicably drawn to Melissa to ask for clarification. Lesley had just stopped in front of Melissa when Percival followed closely behind. Also coming to stand before Melissa, Melissa lost her appetite at the sight, put down the dessert in her hand, and turned to leave, but was stopped by the two. Percival and Lesley said in unison, I have something to tell you. Nathaniel happened to arrive. and stood beside Melissa, looking at the two with unpleasant expressions, and said, "May I ask what you two want with my wife? Why don't you tell me first?" Percival frowned at the sight. "Mr. Nathaniel, I'd like to have a word with Melissa alone." Hearing this, Nathaniel turned to look at Melissa, who had an expression of impatience on her face. Nathaniel looked at Percival again. "Excuse me, my wife doesn't really want to talk to you two, so we'll take our leave now." With that, he took Melissa and turned to leave. Percival was unwilling, but due to the status of the Kane and Lennon families, he had no choice but to temporarily give up. Lesley was no different, although her family background was similar to Percival's. That was years ago, and now they were in City B, where the family was even less significant. The dinner party continued, and Nathaniel took Melissa directly out of the ballroom, sitting in the back of the Rolls-Royce. Melissa shed her exhaustion and gently rested her head on Nathaniel's shoulder. Nathaniel took the opportunity to pull her into his arms. "You must be tired. I should have taken you away sooner." Melissa shook her head, thinking of Julia, who had just provoked her, and couldn't help but ask, "Who exactly is that Julia? Why did she say those things to you? Is she someone from your past romantic entanglements?" As she spoke, the scent of jealousy filled the entire car. Nathaniel felt quite pleased seeing this, knowing that Melissa was jealous, so he honestly explained, "The JG family previously wanted to arrange a marriage with me, but I clearly rejected them as soon as they approached. However, Julia refused to give up. I told her I was already married, but she didn't believe me. The marriage alliance between the two families wasn't widely publicized. People only knew it involved the Lennon family, but its authenticity was uncertain. Those closer to the situation wouldn't question it, but most remained skeptical. After all, Melissa hadn't been seen in the capital's social circles for 8 years, and her sudden return with news of marrying Nathaniel left many momentarily unable to believe it. Upon hearing this, Melissa sat up straight, recalling Percival's words on the stairs about her not being a suitable match for Nathaniel. After a moment of thought, she suggested, "Then let's make it official. That way no one will bother us or question us anymore." Nathaniel nodded in agreement without hesitation. "Okay." As he spoke, he took out his phone and sent a message to Emma. Soon after, Melissa's phone chimed with a message notification, and her friends began sending congratulatory messages. "MS, Melissa finally decided to make it official, as expected of you. Coming back with a bang." Best friend Kate even posted several messages in a row. "You've been married for so long, and he's only just announcing your relationship now. Disappointing." Below is a screenshot of the Twitter trending topics list. The top trending topic was prominently #Kane Group CEO announces marriage #. Melissa clicked on Twitter, and the first thing she saw was the content posted by the official Kane Group Twitter account, a photo of a marriage certificate and a faceless wedding photo. Caption, "A century of harmony, together till white-haired old age." The Lennon family official account immediately reposted, wishing the young lady a happy marriage. Melissa felt a surge of joy upon seeing this, unable to suppress the smile curling her lips. Nathaniel noticed Melissa constantly looking at her phone, her happiness evident, and couldn't help but feel joyful too. Melissa logged out of Twitter and replied to Kate, "I hadn't thought about it that way before, but today I saw someone trying to steal my partner right in front of me. I was so angry that I just let him announce it." Kate quickly responded, "So, are you jealous?" Melissa paused her typing when she saw Kate's message. "Jealous?" She quietly turned her head and glanced at Nathaniel, who was currently looking down at a report on his tablet. Noticing Melissa's gaze, Nathaniel looked up and asked, "What's wrong?" Melissa quickly shook her head. "Nothing, you're busy." With that, she quickly lowered her head, pretending to be busy, but in reality, her heart was pounding. Was she that obvious? Kate figured it out with just one sentence. So wouldn't Nathaniel have figured it out too? They had been together for less than half a year. Had she really fallen in love with Nathaniel already? She had a good impression of Nathaniel before. After all, Nathaniel was handsome and treated her well, so it was impossible for her not to be moved. But she had always warned herself not to fall in love with him easily, in case Nathaniel was like others, just playing along with her, and she would be the one hurt in the end. Yet in the end, she couldn't help but develop feelings for Nathaniel. The only certainty was that her feelings for Nathaniel were different from those for Percival. Percival was the emotional support she had sought for herself, while Nathaniel was a liking free from any ulterior motives. Melissa turned to look out the window, her thoughts in turmoil. the Rolls-Royce stopped at Ihayuanju. Melissa got out of the car and, without waiting for Nathaniel, walked straight into the villa. Now, every time she saw Nathaniel, her heart would involuntarily race. She could only avoid him for a while, calm down, and collect her thoughts. This continued for half a month. Nathaniel didn't understand why Melissa kept avoiding him. Finally, one evening after dinner, as Melissa was about to go upstairs, he stepped in front of her to stop her. "Fufu, why have you been avoiding me? Is there something I did wrong that upset you?" Melissa was momentarily speechless, unsure how to answer. She could only shake her head. "No, it's my own problem." Nathaniel sighed softly when he saw this. "If you don't want to talk, then don't. If I've upset you in any way, tell me. Although ours is a marriage of convenience with no emotional foundation, I have to admit that after these past few months together, I've developed different feelings for you. I hope we can continue this journey together. If there's anything I'm doing wrong, don't hesitate to tell me directly." Upon hearing this, Melissa's heart trembled. She hadn't expected Nathaniel to be so direct. Was this a confession? Melissa froze in place, unsure how to react. Nathaniel stepped forward and pulled her into his embrace, whispering in her ear, "I'll be away on a business trip for half a month and won't be in front of you. When I get back, I want to know why you've been avoiding me." "Okay." Melissa hugged Nathaniel back, inhaling his familiar ebony scent, and nodded silently. Nathaniel was away on a business trip, and Melissa didn't want to live alone in such a large villa, so she moved into Kate's villa to live with her. Upon learning that the two were living together, their former good friends extended invitations, saying they wanted to have a good get-together with Melissa. These friends were childhood acquaintances who knew each other inside and out and had a very good relationship. Melissa hadn't had time since she returned, but now that she finally had free time to gather, she naturally wouldn't refuse. While socializing, she didn't forget to report her daily schedule to Nathaniel. Nathaniel would also send her his schedule. This was something they had agreed upon before. Even when they weren't together, they wanted to know what the other had done throughout the day to maintain their connection. That day, Melissa and Kate went shopping at SKP. Melissa originally intended to buy some seasonal clothes for herself, but as she was browsing, her hand unconsciously reached for the men's section. Picking up a piece of clothing, she imagined Nathaniel wearing it in her mind. By the time she came to her senses, the sales assistant already had a dozen pieces of men's clothing in her hands. 3 sales assistants followed behind her. The lead sales assistant smiled at Melissa and asked, "Miss, shall we wrap all these up for you?" Melissa didn't hesitate, handing another jacket she was holding to the sales assistant. "And this one, wrap it up with the rest." The sales assistant instantly beamed. "Certainly. Please wait a moment." Kate couldn't help but tease when she saw this. "I've never seen you so dedicated when buying clothes for yourself. Nathaniel's charm is truly great." Melissa, teased by Kate, generously admitted, "You're right. When you love, give your whole heart. When you don't, withdraw immediately." You can't give up on love just because of Percival. After all, Nathaniel is different from him. Kate smiled and nodded upon hearing this. "You've finally come to your senses. It wasn't in vain that I, your love guru, advised you for so long." During this time, Melissa honestly told Kate her concerns. Kate had advised her for a long time that there is no pure love in their social class. Since Melissa liked Nathaniel, she should love freely. Even if love eventually faded, there were still power and interests, so she wouldn't lose out either way. Melissa picked out over a dozen sets of men's clothing for Nathaniel, and bought a few outfits for herself, before finally leaving the mall with Kate. Just as she exited the mall, Melissa received a call from an unknown number. After she hung up, it rang again. Kate, seeing this, said, "Who is it? So persistent, why don't you answer it?" Melissa was also curious who it could be, so she answered the phone. "Hello, who is this?" A familiar voice came through the phone. It was Percival. "Melissa, I'm in City B. Can we meet?" Percival's tone carried a hint of pleading as he spoke. Melissa thought for a moment, then nodded in agreement. "Okay. Tomorrow at 10 a.m., I'll send you the address." With that, she hung up the phone. Ever since the auction ended, Melissa's mind had been completely occupied with Nathaniel, and she hadn't thought of Percival at all. She didn't know what Percival wanted to talk to her about, but she wanted to use this opportunity to make it clear to Percival once and for all that she was married. Naturally, she didn't want her ex-boyfriend to frequently disturb her life. Kate asked curiously, "Who is it?" Melissa replied truthfully, "Percival. He said he wants to talk to me." Did you agree to meet him? He wouldn't start pestering you after finding out your identity, would he? Melissa shook her head. No, I know Percival. He's not that kind of person. Besides, I have something to say to him too. This is a good opportunity to get everything out in the open and prevent him from disturbing my life again. Hearing this, Kate didn't say anything more. She knew Melissa had good judgment and decided not to interfere. The two went shopping at other malls for a while longer. Then Kate drove Melissa back to Yihuan Original. Melissa returned to City B, where her father couldn't wait for her to take over the company as he prepared to retire early and travel the world with her mother. After a few relaxing days with Kate, it was time for Melissa to get back to work. Upon returning to the villa, Melissa personally hung the clothes she bought for Nathaniel in the walk-in closet. After hanging them, she took a picture and sent it to Nathaniel. I bought you some seasonal clothes. Want to try them on when you get back? Nathaniel quickly replied with a voice message. Okay, thank you, wife. A low, husky voice came through the receiver. Melissa's heart skipped a beat, and her earlobes quietly turned red. Taking a deep breath, she put away her phone, composed herself, then turned and walked into her study to start working. Meanwhile, Nathaniel looked at the photo of the clothes Melissa had bought for him, and the corners of his lips unconsciously curved upwards. He stared at it for a while before putting away his phone and boarding the plane with Emma to fly to their next business trip destination. Coincidentally, Lesley was also on this flight. Lesley was slightly shocked when she saw Nathaniel, but she didn't approach him. Instead, she waited until after disembarking and intercepted him before Nathaniel could leave the airport. Mr. Nathaniel, may I have a word with you in private? Noticing this, Emma stepped forward and blocked Lesley's path. Excuse me, miss, please step aside. Nathaniel didn't even glance at Lesley, walking straight toward the business car parked by the roadside. Lesley saw Nathaniel about to leave and quickly said, Mr. Nathaniel, I want to talk about Melissa. Are you sure you don't want to hear it? Nathaniel paused, turned to look at Lesley, and after a long moment, slowly said, all right, I'm a bit curious what Miss Lesley wants to say. Emma, take Miss Lesley to Zyanjiaju. After speaking, Nathaniel got into the car first and told the driver to go to Zyanjiaju. After Nathaniel left, Emma took Lesley into another business car and headed to Zyanjiaju. Lesley first went to the hotel to change, and then went to the private room to find Nathaniel. Nathaniel, seeing Lesley seated, went straight to the point. Mrs. Lesley, please speak directly. I'm in a hurry. Lesley felt the pressure emanating from Nathaniel. She took a sip of the tea on the table to steady herself, then spoke. Mr. Nathaniel, do you know that Ms. Melissa lived at the Percival residence for 7 years? Nathaniel's expression remained unchanged, his eyes narrowed slightly. Just say what you want to say. Lesley came to see Nathaniel this time to let him know that Melissa is not perfect. She lived with a man for 7 years before marriage, which is practically no different from being married. She couldn't believe that someone of Nathaniel's social standing would willingly accept a woman who had been cohabiting with another man right up until marriage, essentially making it a seamless transition. Lesley admitted she was jealous of Melissa. Why should Melissa have such a privileged background and a marriage partner who is both kind and accomplished? She just wanted to slander Melissa in front of Nathaniel, to create a rift between them. The old Lesley was never like this. Perhaps it was because Percival had become increasingly cold towards her over the past half-month, making her feel more and more insecure, and her mindset changed, her thoughts returned, and Lesley looked up to meet Nathaniel's gaze, saying, I just didn't expect a prominent figure like Mr. Nathaniel to accept such a woman. Nathaniel's eyes grew colder upon hearing this, but the faint smile remained on his lips. In our class, everyone is the same before marriage. I never cared about her past, but in her future, there will only be me. As for you, Lesley, I hope this is the last time I hear anything about my wife from you. If it happens again, I can't guarantee that I'll still be able to sit here calmly and listen to you. Also, keep an eye on your man, Percival. If he still can't forget my wife, I don't mind making him disappear from this world. With that, Nathaniel got up and left. Lesley broke out in a cold sweat, her fingertips trembling as she clutched the teacup, filled with regret. After she came to her senses, Lesley flew back to Shanghai that very night and never dared to mention Melissa again. Nathaniel was always a man of his word, and she couldn't let her personal desires jeopardize her family. The next day, City B, private room at Jinwei Feng, Melissa arrived to find Percival had already ordered the dishes for her. At the moment Melissa came into view, Percival flashed a hint of unnoticed delight in his eyes. After she sat down, Percival pushed a plate of lychee pork in front of her. "Eat first, we can talk while we eat." Melissa didn't move, speaking directly. "Just say it, I'm in a hurry." Percival paused mid-motion while picking up food. "No matter how late I came home before, you'd always wait for me. Now you won't even spare me this little time. You also said that was in the past." Melissa said indifferently. Percival noticed the impatience in Melissa's brows, so he put down his chopsticks and got straight to the point. "I want to say that the person I truly love in my heart is actually you, not Lesley. For the past 7 years, I've been unwilling to admit my feelings for you and have done so many things to hurt you. I'm sorry." Melissa listened to Percival's words, her heart completely unmoved. "Percival, grow up. When you were with me, all you thought about was Lesley. Now that Lesley is back, you neither explicitly reconcile with her nor proactively break up with me. You just want to see us fight over you, to highlight your charm. When you truly love someone, you wouldn't bear to let them suffer even a little." "Percival, I have to say, you are really immature, and your love is truly unimpressive. I don't want to say too much. I don't want to bring these things up again in the future, as I told you before. You don't have to take my feelings for you seriously. I don't hate you that much. You were with me for 7 years, making me less lonely. Neither of us owes the other anything. That's it." After speaking, Melissa also left. Percival called out to her. "Then why did you get together with me in the first place?" Melissa turned around, met his expectant gaze, and slowly said, "Because you look handsome in a uniform, and I happen to need someone to provide some emotional value. We both get what we need, that's all." With that, Melissa ignored Percival's reaction and turned to leave. Percival watched Melissa's retreating figure, gave a self-deprecating smile, and felt as if all the strength had been drained from his body. Everything, in the end, was just his imagination. Melissa's eyes were devoid of emotion as she looked at him, and Percival knew then that there was no future for them, but he had no one to blame but himself. After returning to Shanghai, Percival told Lesley that he had no feelings for her, then broke up with her completely, sold the Tan Palace mansion, quit his pilot job, began to inherit the company, and devoted himself entirely to work, with no desire for love. He eventually moved overseas and spent the rest of his life alone. Lesley resigned from her flight attendant job and returned to Los Angeles, never to be heard from again. On the other side, Nathaniel on the day he returned home from his business trip. Melissa left work early. When she opened the door, her eyes were met with a room full of roses. Following the path laid out by the roses, she walked into the living room and saw Nathaniel standing amidst the flowers. Nathaniel walked up to her with a smile, led her to the center, then knelt on one knee and took out a ring from his pocket, holding it up to her. "Melissa, will you marry me?" Nathaniel's tender gaze threatened to drown Melissa. Melissa's cheeks flushed slightly. "Didn't I already marry you?" Nathaniel shook his head. "We were different then than we are now. I want to ask, are you willing to marry me now?" Melissa instantly understood Nathaniel's meaning and extended her hand. "I do." Nathaniel smiled with his eyes crinkling upon receiving the affirmative answer, then slipped the ring onto Melissa's ring finger before standing up to embrace her in his arms. "Melissa, thank you for coming into my life, and thank you for agreeing to marry me. Thank you for giving me a reason to live." Nathaniel had witnessed too much of humanity's dark side since childhood, which once made him somewhat misanthropic. Before meeting Melissa, he had contemplated leaving this world. The moment he saw Melissa, all these thoughts vanished, and he himself couldn't explain why. In short, he found the meaning of living, which is to be with Melissa. After confessing their feelings to each other, Nathaniel carried Melissa upstairs. As they nestled close, Melissa hugged Nathaniel and spoke softly. "Nathaniel, I've fallen in love with you. What should I do?" Nathaniel curved his lips into a smile, lifted her hand above her head, interlacing their fingers, as delicate kisses landed at the corner of her mouth. His husky voice, like a siren's whisper, carried a hint of temptation. "Just tell me what to do, and I'll follow." Melissa reached out to loop her arms around Nathaniel's neck, whispering in his ear, "Then I want you to stay by my side forever, and treat me well for a lifetime." Nathaniel tightened his embrace. "As you wish." The end.